Hello, everybody. We are... Sorry for cutting you off for a second, guys. Hello, everybody. We are back. It's been about 2 months since we've done one of these for another Tankie tier squad, where Monarchy Gang gets together and reviews some cringe left-wing videos. Spoon is not joining us tonight because he is busy, but we are joined by Lavender. Want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, or reintroduce yourself, Lav, for the people in the audience?
I have done this shtick like I think 3 times already. I think like a good number of the people know me here. If not, blah blah blah. Watch my channel, give me money on Patreon. That's all you need to know about me. And I would apologize if my voice is a bit, I don't know, like maybe low quality. I'm currently on vacation and I'm participating through my tablet, so that's the reason why my microphone is maybe not as good. And not to mention I have horrible internet here, like 1.5 megabytes per second, like Bosnian village internet I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy.
Oof. Yeah, and of course links to Lav's channel are in the description, and we're also joined by Wolfgang. When again...
Hello, gentlemen.
Yep. Anything you want to shill, or anything you want to
it's
say
like
about yourself?
Mother says, by this point everyone already knows the shtick.
Yeah. So okay, we're all that was easy and painless. Hey, Kami Mark, how's it going? Yeah. So let's just shall we just get into it? I suppose we'll try to see if we can make it through some lefty cringe. We had 2 different videos that Lev suggested. One of them is Second Thought, and the other one is Balkan Odyssey. The first one, which I thought we'd start with, as a little bit before we get into the real, I think, anger. Historical anger. I have not watched either, but from Lav has said is that the second one, the historical one from Balkan Odyssey, might produce some rage, like sincere rage. So let's start with whatever this Second Thought video is, which might make me rage. I don't know. Again, I prefer to not pre-watch stuff. You guys can enjoy the suffering. Sometimes I do when it's my stream, but or when it's only my stream, when I have to set it up. But all right. Start up with a nice ground new sponsor. So this video is called "Why the Government Has Infinite Money." So shall we begin?
Okay, economy experts is cooking.
All right, yeah. Let's see. I'm sure that Second Thought has a very robust grasp on economic systems.
Episode is brought to you by Ground News.
We begin with the deal to raise the debt ceiling.
The agreement raises the debt ceiling until 2025.
It's not 100% of what everybody wants, but when you look, the country is going to be stronger. This is going to be transformational.
Congress just passed an agreement to increase the debt ceiling. If you didn't hear about it after the big panic...
Congress has not prudently done its job. They're off the rails.
Well, that's done now. Republicans and Democrats came to an agreement. They'll raise the debt ceiling for 2 more years, and in exchange, work requirements for food stamps and welfare are gonna get worse.
Wait. Like, does this guy actually not understand how you make deals in politics? They're not just gonna give you whatever you want. Yeah, in exchange. That's how it works. Sorry, right out the bat. All right. So yes, increasing the debt ceiling, which I don't think they should have done. That's ludicrous. But good, you got to spend more, print more, money printer go burr. Although I'm curious as to, I'm sure he thinks money printer really does go burr, and that's just how it works. But I could be wrong. Let's see.
There's going to be a $1.5 trillion spending cut over the next 10 years, which will put a ton of strain on programs like affordable housing. New fossil fuel projects will have an easier time getting permits, meaning more pipelines, and you gotta love that. And of course, the student loan payment moratorium.
Yeah, I do like energy independence. Sure do.
Will be coming to an end. The government is just spending too much money, and we need to tighten our belts and make compromises. Except for the military, because it's just cool as hell. You guys get it. It's so sick.
Based.
I mean... Well, you know, I'm a lolbert at the end of the day, so I'm not in favor of vast military spending. But I'm curious about what's Second Thought's opinion on Palestine?
I'm just gonna say, I pity the US Navy. They still haven't gotten an overhaul in the last 20 years.
Oh, no. But I wonder, you know, shouldn't we be sending a... I guess he wouldn't support the US military then, because the US aligns with Israel. But if we were aligning with Palestine, I wonder if you'd feel the same way. Just a thought. Just a second thought.
I mean, at this point, if it's a lefty, it's automatically for Palestine.
Yeah,
like, there is literally no argument.
Oh no, I mean, that's just a given. I hate to be that way, but I mean, that's the way it is.
I mean, I myself am pro-Palestine, but like you can smell the bullshit with these people a mile away.
Yeah.
Like, you can already tell what their views are.
Yeah, and my position on it is is complicated, I suppose, in that it's just, like, I think I kind of don't care if they all sort of blow each other up. That's sort of more or less my opinion. And I don't want the U.S. to spend any money on it. But, yeah, I just think that he would be... Look, would he be pro... Here's another question. Are you pro U.S. military spending in Ukraine? To aid Ukraine? Just a question. Wondering.
Man, it's awesome with all the guns and the tanks and the domestic spying and the... We gotta give those guys more money. At least $886 billion next year. 3% more than in 2023, if I had to randomly pick a number.
Why do you think that is, dude? Ukraine. Israel. And I think you're on board with one of those. Just saying. Some of that military spending. Just, again, a guess. It's my hypothesis.
Hey, you maggots understand that.
Nothing we can do about it. It's just the coolest thing we can spend money on.
That's the beginning.
Anyway,
Look at
this
that
whole
twink.
episode...
I don't like this kind of performative stuff on YouTube. I don't like being on camera at all, but I'm gonna have to, I think, for this new video. I didn't want to go on camera for the video I just put out about rape. It felt... I just didn't want to. I just didn't want my face on a video about rape. But if I'm gonna do it, I'm not gonna do... I don't understand this whole little cute, let me do my little setup. I don't know, it's a little pet peeve, I guess. But, you know, be creative, be cute, everyone wants to be ContraPoints, I get it.
I think it's more like just like exposition or something to, like, you know, get us present by.
Yeah. Yep. But everyone wants to be ContraPoints, we get it. Oh, did you... Sorry, a little bit of an aside. Lefty drama alert, did you see the...
Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, like ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube having a big cat fight. Anyway, back to this.
Is about government spending, which is a very familiar theme in American politics.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can the chat not? Wait a minute, what? Should be fine, 1 second.
Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Aiden?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I got some internet issues, that's why.
Oh, okay. No problem. Everything's cool, though. I think everything is copacetic. Alright. Cool. We'll get back to it then.
One of the things you'll inevitably hear is the "how are you going to pay for that?" question.
Yeah.
Like with the debt ceiling stuff, this question will never come up for defense spending, obviously. That money is special and...
No! What is this straw man out of the gate? Yes, I would ask that question because I'm a libertarian, dipshit!
Totally
But I also
different.
like
and-
to add that right now in America, from what I know, the U.S. Marines have spent the last 5 to 7 years in the constant fight because they want a modernization package, you know, and they were not able to because Congress has not approved.
Hello?
Like,
You're fine, Lev.
find this,
Yeah, Bosnian internet kicked in.
Oh, sorry. We'll just, we'll work with it as we go. Sorry,
Okay,
continue.
I hope it's not gonna get worse.
Alright.
No, don't worry. You know, as I was saying, yeah, the U.S. Marines were the U.S. Marine Corps has actually been in a very bad shape in terms of equipment. A lot of the equipment is actually quite outdated. And I really don't understand this idea that America throws money off to the army like, you know, just like that. You know, the army comes in, asks for something, and they immediately give him. I mean...
Well, that's how we maintain our political hegemony, is because we have this massive military. That's how we maintain so much of our power.
It's just that the massiveness of the military doesn't always translate to equality.
No, of course not. But it's like the reason for well, now, look, there is a enormous, incalculable amount of bloat in military spending. Absolutely, that's true. I don't like anywhere near as much as we spend on the military. But if you want a reason as to why America spends so much money on its military, it's because that's basically all the power that America has. And look at how shit our military is in terms of, oh, let's put in a bunch of LGBTQIA plus ads and, oh, we need more women. We need more pregnant women in flight suits and fighter jets. That's how we stop the terrorists. Oh my god, it's so insufferable. But yeah, it's the military-industrial complex that makes America still any kind of powerhouse comparatively to... I mean, like, you know, China's a paper tiger, economically and militaristically, but that's where America derives its power, is military. So, and I'm not for military spending either, but yeah, I agree that it's the idea that it's just... A lot of it is throwing money at the wall, but the idea that all of it is also incorrect.
Unrelated, and stop worrying about it. We've got hospitals to bomb. Come on now. But over the next 14 or so months, every single progressive candidate proposing universal healthcare will, without fail, get scrutinized for their budgeting.
Yeah.
Despite the fact it's estimated that universal healthcare would save Americans $450 billion a year, and, less importantly...
How was this conducted? A study by Yale epidemiologists found that Medicare for All would save $68,000 a year while reducing... 68,000 lives a year, excuse me, reducing U.S. healthcare spending by 13% or $450 billion. Epidemiologists? Skincare doctors? Oh no, it's epidemics. That's no epidemiologists. That's studies of disease, of transmissible disease. Is it though? Am I getting confused? Am I now overthinking something and confusing myself? I probably am.
Okay,
now,
let me just Google
now I'm
that.
doing stream retardation, which I normally don't do. Actually, sometimes I do. I haven't had enough to drink yet. That's the problem.
Okay, epidemiologist is a public health worker.
It is public health
who
okay.
investigate patterns. Okay,
I
okay,
was getting it confused with what's the word for people who study skin, and I was like, that's weird. No, that's fine. Okay, so that's the right field. All right. So spending $450 billion less a year. I'd be interested in seeing how they came to that conclusion, though. Medicare for All spending would be approximately $37.8 trillion. That's a lot of money. This amounts to $5 trillion in savings over that time. Well, even a study by the Koch-funded Mercatus Center found that Medicare for All would save about $2 trillion over a 10-year period. You know what? I would also, I could almost see this as being accurate, and I'll tell you why. Epidemiologist is the same as... Epidemiologist. Yeah, I know. Same as a dermatologist. Because the skin is the epidermis, okay? So that's why I got stupid, all right? Anyway. So the reason why I could believe this is true is because of the massive amount of waste that goes into particularly the U.S. healthcare system, where it's like, you get charged $50 for an aspirin, for a simple painkiller, like NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, because the hospitals can charge you for it. And why can they charge you for it? Because of the broken insurance system. So yeah, I could see it as potentially, via some estimates, some semblance of Medicare for All could reduce overall spending, just because in the medical system, it's not going to necessarily reduce, I think, spending probably, are they saying for the government it would reduce spending? And that would make sense, because the government would have to pay for less, probably because then the government would crack down more on hospitals just overcharging. Because the reason why they're able to get away with so much overcharging is because the government doesn't crack down on them. Instead, why don't you have, some regulations there? Which I don't like regulations either, but if you're going to put that in, why not work on regulating it so that hospitals can't charge exorbitant amounts of money for aspirin? That's what I would prefer, rather than Gibbs, but that's just me. I don't know what you guys think on that in terms of the Medicare situation or topic.
Honestly, I'm not that interested in Medicare.
Yeah, it's whatever. I've already embarrassed myself in the public space, but let's go on.
Tens of thousands of lives. But none of that matters. What matters is if it would create a budget deficit. More money going out than money coming in taxes, and therefore more debt. And this sucks. This selective scrutiny for progressive spending, I mean. It creates doubt in a lot of people's minds about the viability of good projects like free healthcare. And this doubt...
Wait, what do you mean selective scrutiny? Because what do the conservatives want to spend money on? The party group that largely wants to spend more and more money are not the conservatives. It's kind of in the name, right? Not that they always do a very good job or almost ever do a very good job.
By the way, I just want to add something. There is no free healthcare.
No,
ever.
No, someone's
you will
paying
pay
for
it one exactly. You will pay for it one way or not. You might not pay on the time you go to the doctor during the visit, but you will pay it through your taxes. You end up paying all the same.
Yes, that's
the thing is, even here in Germany, where I would say we have a pretty decent healthcare system, not everything is free. Like the absolute basics are covered with your insurance, like a small doctor's check to get your thing that you don't have to go to work and so on. But somewhat like, for example, if you go to a dentist, sometimes you actually have to pay a little extra. So like, what I have to the healthcare covers like the basics, but like complete healthcare that covers everything, I think that's a bit impossible.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's one country that does it. It's the Swiss, because instead of having the healthcare being public, they just, it's mandatory to have a health insurance. That's
Right.
so this isn't that fucking works perfectly.
Yeah, Switzerland is always a little bit of an outlier on stuff like this because they're highly homogenous. They have high in-group homophily. Yeah, so Switzerland's a bit of an outlier on a lot of things like that. However, as you say, it's difficult for it to cover everything. It's also it quickly. 2, yeah, you're going to eventually pay for it. Someone's paying for it. And 3, the inevitable problem that comes with this is that it always backs up the healthcare system. It always inevitably does. When you make it so that anyone can go to the doctor for any reason because they've got hypochondria or whatever, it backs things up. And unfortunately, it also kind of oftentimes makes it so doctors don't make as much, so they're less incentivized, even though I just talked about how getting some of that insane money out of the healthcare system, the medical industrial complex, but it does also slow down the system, and it makes things more difficult, and then you end up in a Canada scenario where the government is outright telling people to just top themselves, because there's too much strain. There is so much strain in the Canadian healthcare system, which is supposed to be so great that America wants to emulate, that this guy I'm sure would love for America to adopt. Is he a Canadian or American, do you know?
Of course he's American.
Well, I don't know. He could be a Canadian. But, I mean, if you, like...
What's the difference again?
Very little. But no, that'll piss people off. But in terms of the accent, well, you can sometimes tell if someone's got a very strong Canadian accent, or a Southern accent, you can usually tell. Or there's different accents in different places. But if they speak with, like, a non-regional diction, it can sometimes be difficult to delineate. But, okay, so if he's an American, and probably, given what he said so far, would prefer the Canadian system, well, again, just a reminder that Canada is now telling people who are chronically ill or have been on wait lists for years and years to seek treatment to literally just kill themselves. So there's that great Canadian healthcare system. There you go.
Doubt rarely ever gets resolved by the truth. The truth being that the government can absolutely afford these programs. More than afford. The government has a long list of good reasons to spend money like this, and almost no reason not to, as you'll see throughout this video. These questions about government spending create a lot of doubt, though, and keep us from embracing progressive policies we believe in, including me for a while. Social programs like free healthcare always sounded good to me, but they also sounded expensive. And for a long time, constantly being told that the government's spending so much already that the debt is in trillions of dollars made me believe we actively needed to give up on stuff like free healthcare and scale back our spending. And in short, no we don't. And in long, that's what the rest of the video is for. What I'd like to explain today is that government spending isn't a bad thing. There's no debt your kids will have to pay back, nor is it reckless.
Oh my god! There is no debt.
Not inherently, but too much.
Yes.
I have just a question. Is the concept of budget that foreign to Americans? Like,
I think
over here, the role of the parliament is to make a budget. It gets approved, and then the budget, is spent. The next budget takes into account. Is that concept so hard for Americans? I don't understand.
No, I think for him. So I agree, government spending isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's that next part where you immediately lost me. It's that, no, your kids won't have to pay for it. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Just like every generation has to pay for the generation before them. And the more you spend, the more the next generation, the more it gets put off on them. It always does when you do all of this big government spending on these huge projects. Yes, the children will have to pay for their parents one way or another. It's kind of the choice between letting the children choose to pay for their parents or not giving them an option and taking their money by force. That is the difference, I would say. If children don't want to pay for their parents and let them rot in a nursing home or not even do that, I mean, that's the system, that's the option you have. This would be, no, you don't get a choice. All right.
Spending by well-intentioned but ultimately kinda careless bureaucrats. We can afford to pay for social programs like universal healthcare, and welfare, and new infrastructure, and high-speed rail, and sustainable energy, because government spending is A, not funded by taxes, so more government spending.
Okay, sure. Elucidate. Enlighten me. Where does the money come from? Is it the money printer? I'm genuinely now curious.
Doesn't mean less money in your pocket. And B, there is no hard limit on government spending so long as the government spends money on something. The real
Oh no, it's this argument. Okay. Alright, okay. Gotta spend money to make money. That's that, okay. Yeah.
constraint on government spending isn't money, that it has in unlimited supply. The constraint is physical resources. It isn't more responsible to spend less because all that spending less means is not taking advantage of the resources at our disposal. It wouldn't cause massive problems if we spent more, because for a country like the US, which has something called currency sovereignty,
it won't continue to have the currency sovereignty if you make the currency not worth anything by devaluing it by printing more, if that's going to be where this is going.
Increasing the national debt isn't the same thing as when you and I go into debt. It isn't even really debt at all.
Oh,
Let me
this
explain.
shit. Yes, it's just fine because we can. Yes, because no one's gonna call our bluff ever, so we can just do it. I've heard these people make these arguments before. I'm used to this. Yeah, it's not.
Abolishing the gold standard was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, no one's gonna call us on our bluff, so we can just keep racking up debt. It will never harm us in any way. Okay, I mean, live in a delusional fantasy land, I suppose.
The federal government of the US has currency sovereignty. It has a fiat currency, meaning its currency isn't tied to anything like gold, and it issues debt mainly in said currency. When the government spends more than it taxes, this is called a deficit. This deficit is a gap the government fills at the moment through debt, and the US gets this debt by selling bonds. This is easily the most confusing part of the video, so bear with me for a second. What are bonds? Well, the private sector lends the US money, and in return, the US issues them an IOU, a bond that the government promises to pay back with interest at a later date, maybe 5, 10, 15 years later. The government doesn't really need this money. Remember, it can print more at any time because it has—
Oh, I told you! There it was.
Well,
So we are the global backup. So all these other countries take out loans from us, or we take out loans from them, excuse me, and we say, yeah, we'll pay you back at some point, and then we just pay them back with money that we have devalued by printing more. That's how inflation works, you idiot. And the longer you wait, the more that the inflation goes up, and the more they have to pay back. How do you not get this? Dude, I don't like to say shit like this usually, but you gotta read Thomas Sowell, Basic Economics, my dude. Come on. I know he's a conservative and that's scary, but he's a black man. Does that get him something? I don't know. Get him some points? Make him even worse, maybe.
as a fiat currency, so this is less of an actual loan and more of a savings account for the private sector. A risk-free asset that the government lets people, mostly the wealthy, store some of their money in. But anyway, these bonds are held by a lot of people, including some foreign governments. But the vast majority are held by Americans, the government itself, and the Federal Reserve.
No, you mean by number, not by amount. I mean, the Federal Reserve has a lot too, but I think he means by the percentage, not the amount of money.
Yeah, and here's also a bit unrelated, but people like Second Thought and like these people in general, they all support like the labor theory of value. I think we all know what that is. And I actually remember having a discussion with a Marxist like last week about this. So I basically asked him, the labor theory of value requires that a product be socially necessary. Mm-hmm. And he answered, okay, yes. So then I made the hypothetical. So like if I make pies out of berries that everyone in a secluded village is allergic to, then they are valueless because they're not socially necessary. And he agreed with me. So then I said, but if explorers with the goods who aren't allergic to the pies want to trade for them, they have value now because there is now demand for the product. And then he says, sounds right to me. So then I said, okay, that's literally just basically supply and demand. Yep. And then he answered, you don't understand Marxist theory. Okay, yeah, typical. I mean, you caught him, and obviously you worked him through the logic there, but it doesn't align with his theory, so then it had to be rejected. Oh my, let's continue. I mean, the labor theory of value has been debunked so many times. Like, I'm genuinely surprised why people still unironically believe in it.
Because they've been told to. Their professor told them to, when they got their sociology degree or their philosophy degree, whatever it is. They read this stuff in college and they just repeat it. They regurgitate it verbatim, ad nauseum.
Which will often buy back bonds as a way to introduce more currency into the economy. We call this debt. But it's more like an accounting system for the government and a way for it to give some value to its currency, by making sure people want to store their wealth in dollars instead of something else. Unlike you and me.
But if you have too many dollars in circulation, and nothing backing it up anymore, then people will stop wanting to secure their money with the US, which we are already seeing happening.
The government will always be able to pay this debt back, to return the money on the IOUs it created, because it's issued everything in dollars, which the government can produce in unlimited supply.
Yeah, but what if the currency stops being dollars?
I just want to say that he's making an amazing argument for having gold reserves.
He is. Yes, he absolutely is. That would be a good argument for having this not be fiat currency and have us actually be backed by gold. But this relies upon the idea that American political hegemony is eternal, and that no other country will ever have any kind of currency that in any way competes with the US. And if the US continues to devalue its own currency, that won't be the case. By reckless spending, by printing more money, that's how you devalue a currency. I don't understand how this is complicated to this dude.
And not to mention, if you look at the graphs of productivity versus real wages, like in the United States, productivity and the real wages were around the same. If productivity was bigger, then the wages were bigger. But then the only time, the exact moment productivity, while productivity was going up, but the real wages stagnated, was the moment the gold standard was abolished.
Moreover, he even mentioned, the government, they can pay this back whenever they want. When have they? Not. How often does the U.S. government pay off its debts? Or even pay much back into them? Not very frequently. Whoa, Dilly Bond for 50 says, what are your opinions on objectivism? I think Ayn Rand's system is better than socialism, monarchy, and republicanism.
To be honest, I still think it is a bit of an extreme form of libertarianism.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Monarchism was the system that I landed on as a kind of compromise, right? Between a centralized government and maximalization and protection of libertarian ideals. Yeah, I agree with Spoon. I think Ayn Rand's philosophy is incomplete. I think she was onto a lot of really good ideas, but I do think it's incomplete.
Not to mention, I haven't read Atlas Shrugged yet, but I really feel like Ayn Rand's form of libertarianism is also the do whatever you want as long as no one hurts that kind of philosophy.
More or less. I think I've seen a little bit. I think it's oversimplifying Rand a little bit, but yeah, it's that sort of branch of libertarianism. I'd say more or less.
I have also heard people that Atlas Shrugged is just not worth it because apparently to them the entire book is just it's just almost 1,000 pages of A equals A is always true.
Right. Whoa, and Deadpool Kid for 50 as well says, but Aiden, we have to print and spend to combat the intergalactic space bugs that are spreading communism. We have to fight for democracy. Join your nearest Helldivers recruitment center. All options are not available at this time. Thank you, Deadpool Kid. I gotta play Helldivers as soon as I finish this video, but this video's gonna take me a while. Bill's gonna start playing it soon, I guess, so I'll have to get on it at some point. It does look really, really fun. Thank you, Deadpool Kid. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, I do want to play it because it seems like a really fun game. All right, shall we?
Yep.
Oh, real quick, Frog Jupiter for 2 says, do you plan to watch the new Civil War movie? Yeah, maybe to make fun of it, because we watched the trailer and it did look really silly.
I remember when that trailer came out for that Civil War movie, and you know how the guy had those red glasses on?
Yeah.
Well, red when the trailer dropped, those red glasses were sold out on Amazon, and they later literally pulled them from the shelves.
Oh my god. That's hilarious. Of course it was. God. So predictable in that.
Be able to pay this debt back.
Okay,
to return the money on the IOUs it created. Because it's issued everything in dollars, which the government can produce in unlimited supply.
Oh,
the government can never go bankrupt.
Yes.
I love the fact that he's saying this without realizing if the government can just print whatever money it wants, if the government cannot run out of dollars, What's the actual value of the
Exactly. Then the dollar has no value. If they can print it forever, ad infinitum, then yeah, what value does it have? It has, it's already not backed by gold. The only value that it has is that you're promising to pay it back, which we don't do, and under the auspices that it's worth this much, but when you print more, it inherently devalues the currency. So it inherently means that over time, as you print more and more money, the inflation goes up, the value of the dollar goes down, and the government becomes less able to pay it back. The idea that the government can't go bankrupt, I don't know where the fuck he gets that from.
I mean, that is literally economics 101.
Yeah.
Maybe the countries that went bankrupt should have, just not go bankrupt. That sounds like a good plan.
Oh, yes, he just, what does he think that the government can just say,
literally,
yeah,
just
whatever.
don't go bankrupt.
Yeah, we declare ourselves
Just say
not
I
bankrupt.
don't consent to be bankrupt,
I
and
think-
it's fixed.
I think that's what he's saying here is that if the government doesn't say that they're bankrupt, they're not bankrupt because they can just print more money. Look, when this started, I did not expect this to legitimately be money printer go burr is a legitimate economic argument, but I was kind of joking about that. Did not disappoint though. Wowee.
Gold to come in or something. The government debt is just a way the government monitors and holds onto a part of the money supply. If that was a little technical and complicated,
No, it was stupid is what it was. It was fucking brain dead is what it was. It wasn't complicated or technical, and you didn't explain it well because I don't think you understand it either, judging from the insane stuff that you insinuated.
Here's a more practical way to think about it. Governments spend first and tax later. They create money and then they destroy some of it with taxes. You already knew that. We all know that governments create money. Without the government, there would be no dollars because somebody needs to print them out, or credit bank accounts with digital dollars. And you and me, we're just not allowed to do that. But we often forget this fact when it comes to government spending. We know that governments are responsible for money creation, and yet most of our lives, we're told that the government gets a big pile of money through taxes and then spends some of it, and that's how federal budgeting works.
Yeah, well, that is how budgeting works. Okay, let me try to help me, guys. Is this what he's actually saying? Is that? This is this
The Serbs got him.
This is this commie. Oh no.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my grandfather started a WhatsApp voice call and literally freeze the entire internet.
Oh no. Do you want to go back? I think I'll just ask the question. I think that this guy, I think what he believes here is that it's that kind of like lefty commie belief that money it has absolutely no value except for what we attribute to, which is true to a certain degree. So therefore, just fuck it.
The way I see it so far, the way I talked about the idea of currency is that it's just like something banal, something that government does whatever they want, has no importance whatsoever in the economy, doesn't matter for the budget, but just money doesn't matter how much money you have when you make a budget. That's the way you give me the impression he gives me. That's
Yeah, it sounds like he just thinks it's all fake. It's all completely made up.
For me, the way he speaks, it makes it sound like, let's imagine a poor country like Sri Lanka,
Mm-hmm.
They can just make a budget of $3 trillion, spend that and say, yeah, we are fine, we can just, we have in debt now, but there's no problem.
I mean, how does this guy think it worked in all of those African countries where, it ended up being, or like was it Zimbabwe, the one that went really crazy, Rhodesia, where it was like, there's been tons of examples of this over history, where the money gets so inflated that it's like something, I think it was Zimbabwe, where it's something like you have to have $10 million Zimbabwe notes.
20 million.
Yeah, 20 million notes, just to be able to buy, I don't know, a loaf of bread. So, that's what happens. You can keep saying, I dictate as the government, I dictate that I have more money, and this is what we declare our money's worth. Now, again, does this work temporarily in the United States? It's working right now. If we continue to devalue our currency, though, I don't think it works and not pay back our debts. No, and I think you gotta be very careful about this short-sighted nature of things, right? I think this is a very short-sighted, very immediate sort of, give me things now, I want stuff now, and I don't want to plan for the future.
Okay, thank you, Grandpa, very cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the internet here is so bad. Just literally just one WhatsApp video call and the entire thing just crashes.
Oh Jesus. Let's get back into it if we're okay for the moment. Oh, real quick, Stan Vanderact for €6 says my latest video makes more fiscal sense than this clown lol. Stan, if you post it in the Discord or whatever, yeah, we can check it out at some point, or just so everyone in the Discord can see your stuff. I think we in the Broken Crown Discord, I think we have a thing for posting videos that people make. Anywho, thank you. Let's get back to it, shall we?
But that's not true. They spend first by creating money and spending it somewhere, and then they tax later according to how much they need to.
No. Not according to how much they need to. They make these budgets, they spend, and then they tax. In terms of, like, it's not what they need. Their budgets are often super inflated, because it's based on guesses of how much money they think they need. And then they are forced to spend that money pretty much so that they, well, besides what they give away. But, look, they create these arbitrary budgets, then they have to spend it, which inevitably taxes people more than probably necessary. It happens all the time. That's why we look at these Green New Deal things, the Democrats put in every little freaking stupid thing that they want to put in, and they make it 1,000 pages long so that they are trying to sneak in just more and more spending, so that once the budget's set, then that determines the taxes. You're right in terms of the order, but you're wrong in terms of the outcome and the effect that it has when you make up these farcical budgets and then do have to tax the people for it. Ultimately, the money has to come from somewhere, if it has any value at all. Otherwise, the money has no value and you become Zimbabwe.
Why are taxes part of this process? Well, the government has a rule. We all need to pay our taxes in dollars. No one's allowed to do it in Bitcoin or elegantly crafted poems, no matter how moving they may be.
Oh my god.
So people need dollars for their taxes, which the government gives them.
This is one of those guys who, when they were asked, like, what are you going to do after the revolution? What will your job be in the glorious people's republic? And he's like, oh, I'll be a poet. You just, I don't know if you guys remember that.
Back to the fucking coal mines.
Yeah. Back when they did, they made that little, they occupied, what city was that, where they occupied a couple blocks of it for, it was in Portland, right? And they occupied Seattle. Yeah, it was Seattle. They occupied a few blocks of it, and it was during that that they...
Yeah.
That was a warlord and everything.
It was during around that same time I remember seeing there was a Twitter thread, and the thread was just like asking, like, what are you going to do? What will be your job after the People's Revolution? And almost, I would say, like, the vast majority were teacher, because of course, I had to teach children about the revolution and about communism. That was the majority. And then I think that was probably the plurality, I should say. Then the next most common was artist. And then the rest were like, well, I'm disabled and stupid, so I'll just, like, sit at home and play video games and do arts and crafts. Pretty much. Yeah. This guy, that's what he's thinking. Yeah, I'll be a poet, I'm sure. Just a guess.
I mean, it works so well that a guy walked up to the Chaz area and became a warlord. For fuck's sake.
The African warlord era of Chaz was beautiful.
That was hilarious. That was amazing. Yeah.
And also, remember the garden, like the people's garden?
Yes, that they planted on top of a...
Can you even call it a garden?
Yeah, I mean, I think calling it a garden might be
They didn't even plant it right.
No. Of course not. Of course they didn't. And it's like funny too. They'd like stolen the plants from some local small gardening store and
my favorite moment was when
a
cracked up homeless guy literally destroyed the entire garden.
Right. Oh yeah. Somebody was also like, maybe there was the same guy who was just like dancing around on top of it with a stick, like.
Which one? The one that got shot and sent to the Chaz hospital?
Oh, I don't think he got shot. He was just dancing around with his pole arm or something on top of the garden, and they couldn't say anything to stop him because, I mean, what are they gonna do? They're all a bunch of soy boys. Anyway, so yes, your job. I'm sure his job in the glorious people's communist utopia will be to be a poet. Yes, and then you won't have to worry about money. We can print lots for you too.
Okay.
Second thought.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought for a moment Grandpa killed the Wi-Fi again.
The struggle is real.
sometimes by buying bonds, or more directly by funding new projects. That money goes from one business to another and eventually ends up in your pocket.
Does it go to one business or another, or does it go from one NGO to another? Who don't actually do shit. It doesn't go to businesses most often. Or when it does go to businesses, it goes into completely wasteful places very often. Like, for example, the Department of Homeland Security giving $700,000 to investigate the connection between video games and violent extremism, some of which their money went to Sweet Baby Inc. So did money from the Montreal government, $25,000 per year per employee, and a $300,000 new program that was launched by the Ottawa government to give money into investigating extremism and video gaming just this year. Now, they may give that to businesses, but what are those businesses recontributing to society? Fuck all. They're leeches. But yes, that goes back into your pocket, I'm sure. The $700,000. I just had the numbers in my head right now because I've just made it. I'm working on a video about it. But yes, the $700,000 that the Department of Homeland Security invested in studying video games and violent extremism, I'm sure is going right back into the American taxpayer's wallet now, isn't it? Very cute.
It as your paycheck, and that way you can pay your taxes. This process of creation and taxation allows the government to fund
How? Wait, how does it go back into your wallet? He's saying that it goes back into your wallet because your employer pays you more because they receive government subsidies? Is that it? Is that the argument? I don't understand it. I mean, as inflation goes up, the cost of goods goes up. So I don't understand how the American taxpayer is getting their money back. He must be arguing that it's through their employer paying them more. But that's making a bunch of leaps, I'd say. Hey, Scum.
Projects, generate demand and value for its currency, and ultimately control the money supply in its economy. Now that you understand that, things get a bit more complicated. In practice, the government doesn't create all the money itself. It lets private banks do most of it, and it's mostly happy just kind of monitoring what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
When a private business gets loans from a bank, that bank isn't taking money from your savings and giving it to the business owner. It's...
Yeah, they kind of are, though. They are using your savings as collateral. That's how that works. That's why when there's a money run on the banks, it's devastating, right? Because they have to, usually they don't have any of that money because they've invested your money elsewhere. They don't even have the money because they've taken literally your money that you put into the bank to secure and they've invested it elsewhere, which is why a run is such a serious issue. Does this guy not fucking have any? Are you guys still there, by the way? This is insane. Sorry, this is nuts.
Creating new money out of thin air. And the government is cool with some private banks doing this so long as they follow a couple rules and the economy works.
How about what was that bank that Sam Bankman-Fried was involved with? Not FTX, the bank that collapsed because of the FTX debacle. There was like a couple banks that collapsed over that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know of that.
No, there were a couple banks that that in 2020, that last year collapsed. Silicon Valley Bank, that was it. Yeah.
And nothing of value was lost.
A lot of money was lost. A huge amount of money. it was billions, I believe. But yeah, it just poof,
well,
it disappeared because they didn't have $100 billion in assets. So that's just what I read real quick. I think that's just what I read quickly there. So yeah, because again, they had invested the money in a bunch of stupid shit. They took your money and invested it in a bunch of stupid shit. And then when people went and tried to get their money out of the bank didn't have the money because guess what? They spent it. Second thought, like that's how it works. They did spend those people's money and then didn't have it to repay the people who invested. Well, by storing it in the bank.
Works the way the government wants it to. Money is created out of thin air all the time. Instead of letting private banks create new money, more government spending is just the federal government funding things itself instead of private businesses taking out loans. It's why when we say that the government could fund universal healthcare, infrastructure, the Green New Deal, whatever, it's true. The same way private banks could fund basically anything so long as the government doesn't call them a counterfeiter. There are no financial constraints when you can create and destroy money at will.
But you... But yes, there are. I mean, I guess there's no restraints, no. But the money changes value when you create or destroy it.
So...
It's called scarcity. Yes, and the scarcity is artificial when it comes to fiat currency. But if you have nothing to back it up, then yes, that devalues the currency. It's such simple shit.
So, what's the limit? Well, the only real constraint you have to consider is what economists call the real economy. There's money, and then there's the real economy, the actual resources that this new money can be spent on. In the case of universal healthcare, for example, the government would be paying doctors and nurses' salaries, the salaries of the workers who make medical equipment, pills, and other pharmaceuticals, the hospital's electricity bills.
Yeah, and by the way, if you think that the medical industrial complex is corrupt and overspends now, how much worse do you think it would be if government bureaucracy got involved with it? Again, I have a lot of negative things to say about the American medical system, all right? It massively overspends because they know that they can charge insurance companies out of the ass. That whole thing is a racket. The insurance companies are in on it. Absolutely. It is a racket, in my opinion. I think it's disgusting the way that they screw over people. However, when the government gets involved, that's not going to fix this problem. And even regulation necessarily isn't going to fix the problem because the government's so fucking corrupt. I don't know how you fix that exactly. I'd be willing to have because that's one I've not had a good answer to. Going back to the medical thing again, though, which I know that you guys said you don't have strong opinions on necessarily. So yeah, I'm not sure the solution to that under the current system.
And all the other things that keep medical centers running. The real constraints on what a government can do aren't coming from the budget. Remember, the budget is infinite. The constraints are the real-world resources at its disposal. When the government isn't spending on healthcare like this, either the private sector will and profiteer, or those—
Yes, good! Do you want to know what actually puts money into people's pockets? The private sector operating without a bunch of government oversight and profiteering so that people who have invested in that company can make money from it. So people get products and goods that they want, they spend their money, and that is not overly inflated, for goods and services that they want, and then that company makes money and divests the money to its shareholders. That's basic economics, dude! Come on now.
Resources will go unused. This is the reason government spending doesn't break everything. Because when new money is created, it's to do new stuff. The money supply—
Like what? Like I just said, like spending $700,000 to investigate the link between video games and violent extremism? Yeah, stuff like that. So many useful things that the government spends its money on. Oh my god.
Grows, but so does the real economy, which government spending mobilizes. When the government funds a new endeavor, it's getting more use out of the resources available, and therefore having more money floating around isn't a problem.
What if the government is spending it on pointless shit like I just said? This guy has no idea about how much waste there is within government. Does he just think it all... I guess he must think that it all just works out perfectly and no one would ever be corrupt as long as it's the government. I don't know how lefties got like this, by the way. Like, when I was younger, at least. You guys are both younger than me by a good deal. But it used to be that leftists used to be kind of skeptical of the government.
Yeah, and honestly, I really think that, like, the old communists and socialists, I believe they actually kind of understood the economy more than these modern ones.
Yeah, I think they at least had some kind of idea of how some form of basic economics works. This guy is just, he's out in left field. And again, it's this very bizarre idea of just trust the government. The government will never misappropriate your funds. They'll always spend it on good things. Well, I guess here's the problem is, so long as as long as progressives are in power, trust us. Give us the money. And for our big, giant, enormous spending bills, which we shove 100 different things in, and don't elaborate upon, so you have to dig through it to figure out what the money's even going towards. Yeah, you can trust us, though. Now, I wonder
ironically...
Yeah, go ahead.
Ironically, coming out, like, there was this one time, like, in Italy after World War I, when the socialists won the election, and it was basically Italy's first socialist election victory. And you know what the socialists did, like, in the countryside of North Italy? They basically made the landowners pay higher wages to, like, the farmers, and then they also forced them to hire hire like normally instead of year round, like when the harvests are. When this meant that they were basically squeezing the farmers out of money, and the worst thing is, and here's the kicker, they gave absolutely no benefits to the farmers, no subsidies, nothing to help them. The farmers were basically on their own. And you know what you want to know what then happened?
You did tell me about this, but elucidate for the chat.
They turned to the fascists for help. The fascists then kicked the socialists out of the area, and then they established their own monopoly over the agricultural labor market.
There you go. I mean, like, it's so ignorant of history to not see, no pun intended, to not be aware of where this inevitably goes. That this is a horrific idea, and just, yeah, as Zim the Despot for 5 says, leftists used to be skeptical of government until they were in charge. Again, I don't think he would be saying things like this if he believed that this was gonna... Would this guy want to give a Trump government full and total control over the economy in this way? To make these kind of diktats? I don't think he'd be down with that. But then again, the reason why he's saying things like this is because he knows that conservatives, like I said, it's in the name, even if they don't abide by it very often, or almost ever, don't tend to engage in these massive spending programs where they just end up giving themselves money and spending it on worthless, progressive sort of programs that don't actually go back into anyone's politics. Spoon, who follows you on Twitter? I see you're very excited. Spoon, who followed you on Twitter? You're all excited. Spoon, you can come on whenever too, by the way, if you want to. You're of course invited. It is our collective podcast channel. Anywho, let's get back into it.
Yes,
But I know you're thinking about inflation, because we're often told that inflation happens when the government spends too much. But that's not true either. Countries like Japan, for example, have some of the highest debt-to-GDP ratios in the world, and still the country can't get out of deflation. More government spending does not automatically...
No, Japan is always a outlier case on stuff like this for a number of reasons. One, first of all, you want to talk about Japan being incredibly homogeneous? No? Oh, Bronze Age Pervert followed you? Yeah, Brap's awesome. That's really cool, Spoon. Hell yeah. In terms of... Japan, it is a fringe case. It's because the country is very homogenous. Japan doesn't have a whole lot of also people who rely on a lot of social welfare programs because it's so taboo in Japan in a way that it just isn't in the West. The number of people who will take advantage of those kinds of programs that you're advocating for in the West is vastly more so than in Japan. It's not an issue there because of the culture, largely speaking. I mean, that's why it also works in places like Switzerland, okay? Yeah, we already brought that up. So, yeah, maybe in a very homogenous culture that has a whole hell of a lot of high trust, yeah, maybe you can implement some of these things. And I've said before that I think that that's probably more viable in countries that are very high trust. America's not a high trust society. Used to be, a long time ago. Britain used to be a long time ago. But not anymore. You can't implement these things here.
Lead to inflation or hyperinflation. All it really takes for inflation to happen is for enough businesses to start raising their prices. Your grocery store might raise their prices, if they're a market leader, for example, and you will feel the pain of inflation.
No, not if they're a market leader. Does this guy not actually know also how food gets to a grocery store? He's one of these guys, isn't he? When the wholesaler charges more, when the farmer charges more, or has to charge more to stay afloat because of the downward stream effect of inflation, it goes back up, right? So the farmer now has to charge more just to keep producing goods.
These people ignore that grocery stores, when they order, they also spend money on all of these things that you can buy. And in order to make a profit, they need to, raise the price a little. Yes. That's why, for example, let's say bananas were sold to the retailer at $2, and the retailer sets the price for bananas, I don't know, like $2.20. In the end, they only made a 20-cent profit, right, and not all of that money that you spent.
And let's talk. And then that's not even dealing with loss. That's not dealing with in terms of both theft and the fact that if it's like produce, it goes bad. And if people are tightening their budgets because they're feeling the cost of inflation, they might not be able to afford bananas. They might say, I'm gonna go without bananas this week. And then what happens? The grocery store has to just throw them out. That is a just total net loss of $2 if we're saying that's the price of the bananas, right? They have just lost all of that. They're out. They're the ones who have to take the initial risk in buying it and hoping someone will then come and buy from them. And that goes all the way down. The farmers have to raise their prices. Then the wholesaler that is going to distribute, or the distributor that's distributing to these grocery stores, has to raise their prices. And then the end user at the grocery store has to pay more for it. And if people are feeling that their wallets are tighter, they're less likely to buy stuff, there's more loss. It makes it more and more expensive exponentially at every single level.
I also literally don't understand how they think that price controls work.
Because I think that people like this just think they can micromanage everything. If they just say it is, therefore it is. So, just like he said, like, oh, the government can just print money. I say so, so therefore it can, and then nothing bad will happen. I'll just control the prices.
The funny thing is, like, that actually reminds me, literally, like, early Islamic Arabia, they literally had no laws on price controls. Like, there were absolutely no price controls at all. And there is actually a hadith, about the Prophet Muhammad, where one guy walked up to him and asked him to impose price controls to make the lives of the people easier. And then he responded, that is up to the trader. I do not wanna be responsible for any injustice that is done through these price controls. It's like the Prophet Muhammad was against price controls.
I mean, because, well, obviously, you set price controls, then it means that, again, it's somewhere down the line, because very few goods... Excuse me, 1 second. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold still, guys. I muted it for the stream. You guys unfortunately heard it, my coughing. But, so, the problem is that there's very, very few goods, even... 1,000 or 1,500 years ago, 1,700 years ago, whatever. Throughout the course of human history, it's very rare for goods to go directly from the producer right into the hands of the end user or the person buying it. It does happen still sometimes in small towns, but it's rare. And anytime you have any kind of middleman or any person in between, setting price controls massively complicates that. And it also means that if things are getting tighter, again, on the person who's creating it, even if it is a one-to-one trading system, we are just bartering goods for goods, even. Well, I mean, at that point, if some, like you were talking about the pie situation, if some good is not worth anything at this period of time, in this particular region, well then, again, setting price controls, if we were just talking about straight bartering, even that isn't analogous. Even that doesn't work. But if we're talking about using a fiat currency, well, if you're setting price controls, again, if things are tight, if the money is fluctuating in its value, if the goods are fluctuating in their value, then setting price controls as arbitrary as that is going to end up screwing people. Inevitably. It will end up screwing people over, and it's just not a good idea. Deadpool Kid for 50 says, in a strange way, ideology like socialism is experiencing some sort of devolution. The ideologues are physically regressing and structurally retarded. The revolutionaries are nowhere near the same as the previous generations. I think that's because what this is, like this guy, this is, like it's so many degrees removed from original, like, actual socialist and communist sort of thought. They don't actually read any of that stuff. They just get told about it by their professors. And then at the same time, they live in the West, in this world of extreme luxury that's also capitalistic. And they can't circle the square, so they just have to make shit up. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry? Oh, Lab might have.
I didn't see.
Oh, I thought.
I don't know if my microphone is lagging.
Oh, okay. I hear you now, though.
Okay, at least. Okay, let's see what he has more to say.
Okay.
Without the government having changed the money supply at all. Businesses that can't change their prices like this, either because they're in a more competitive market or can't move their prices as fast, will simply lose profits and might even go under.
What
We
happened
tend
during
to think
COVID?
of inflation as everything getting more expensive, and having more money in the economy seems like it would cause that. But if everything did get more expensive at once, inflation...
Dude, when did he make this video?
I think he made like a few months ago. Wait, let me check.
Yeah, let me just bring it up, because this is an insane thing. 6 months ago. This is an insane thing to put out when we're experiencing insane amounts of inflation, and everyone can feel it in their wallet. Everybody all over the Western world knows that the inflation's out of control. Anyone who is not a rich, lefty elitist, coastal elitist in the United States knows that it costs significantly more to buy essentials today than it did 3 years ago in the United States. I can't... Who is this for? Other coastal lefty elitists, I guess, who live on daddy's money, and so they have no idea how much things cost? That they don't experience inflation? It has to be. Because how else could anyone go along with this?
Inflation wouldn't be a problem. If everything suddenly got more expensive, your salary would automatically go up too.
And then it never stops. It's a feedback loop. And then your salary goes up, and then the cost of goods goes up, and then your salary goes up to account for it, and then the cost of goods goes up. The actual net doesn't change. The net only changes if the strength of the economy changes. What? You just keep adding more money, printing more money. It doesn't matter if you get paid more if the dollar is worth less. Because there's more of it. Dude, this is crazy. Fucking crazy. Parker B for 20 says, there's a really great Forbes opinion piece that I found recently called, "You Call It Inflation, I Call It Theft." Really explains the ways that inflation is used to screw normal people. Yeah, I'll check that out, Parker B. Let me check, copy that in my notes. But this is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Oh.
It's because things move asymmetrically in the real world that inflation is so devastating, and all it takes is a few businesses leveraging their market position for it to happen. If anything, government spending on something like universal healthcare might even be deflationary. In all likelihood, it would lower the prices of health insurance and your prescriptions by cutting...
Why?
Well, that's a bold claim to make.
Why would it lower the cost? Okay. So if we have universal basic healthcare, but I'm presuming that people were still paying for insurance for advanced healthcare, right? Why would the cost of their healthcare go down? Now they're paying for... That would actually probably make it go up, because now they don't want to be waiting the lines along with all the plebs, do they? If you've got the money to pay for it, do you want to wait in the line with the plebs? Right? You don't. So if you've got the money to pay for it, then probably it would be more so that you get preferable treatment. Yeah, how's it working with the NHS, right? No. Great.
out the profits for the middlemen of the private insurance world. I'll say it again. Government spending has nothing to do with inflation.
Okay.
And in the real world, almost all cases of hyperinflation didn't happen because of more money printing, but as the result of productive capacity collapsing or an over-reliance on foreign currency.
Oh, is this, he's gonna get into Zimbabwe now or something like that? Yeah. It's because the foreign powers pulled out of Zimbabwe, although you didn't want them there. Okay.
Not government
That was
spending.
colonialism.
Taken all together, this is why the government
he won't even
has
go
this
into
kind of...
Oh, he won't go into it because he knows. I think that's not a productive avenue to go down. That's why he just mentions it and sails past it, huh? You knew you'd get caught in that one. Dingus.
liberty to spend. This framework of understanding money creation and destruction, generally referred to as modern monetary theory, or MMT, is why more spending and even more debt is fine. So long as the government finds something to spend money on, it can do it. It already does this anytime the Pentagon comes running for more money, or during the pandemic when the Fed injected $5 trillion into the economy. The problem with government spending is profit. In a capitalist economy, the prime directive that private business owners are operating under is profit-making.
Yeah. Duh. Okay, where are you going with this? Yeah, the government injected billions into the economy, and the economy is way worse after the fact. Case, point, argument over. What?
The more the government finances directly, which it can do without worrying about profit and only focusing on the real-world outcomes, the less private businesses can extract profit from that thing. If the government spends...
Private businesses extracting profit from the thing is how regular people make money. I know that you're a fucking idiot who thinks that all business owners are mustache-twirling monopoly men, but that's not true. The vast majority of business owners, just per number, not the ones who have the most money, but the vast majority of business owners are small business owners who really do work month by month, paycheck to paycheck. And stuff like this will kill them in terms of, will kill their business, right? Dude, the way these people, they think that anyone who has a business, you own a business, second thought. You idiot. You're a business owner.
These people, like in general, they hate all forms of businesses. Like,
Yes.
I can remember, like a few months ago, where there was news on Twitter about a small boy having like his lemonade stand destroyed, and you know, he was crying. And then all these lefties in quotes were like, haha, bourgeois destroyed, like unironically.
Yeah, I saw that. Absolutely insane. Absolutely fucking insane. Oh, man. Kizza, who's been a member for 14 months. I'm gonna get the other super chats at the end. Sorry, I've just seen this as they come through. Says, I object. The king requests to join the panel as he is English and has much to say about MMT, universal healthcare, and the reality of the economic debts of countries, especially post-1970. This guy's a fucking retard. Kizza, we'll talk about it some other time. We've already got this set up. I don't want to just interrupt the stream. But thank you, Kizza. This guy is a retard, though.
On healthcare, a private business can't, and therefore won't, get the opportunity to skim a little off the top.
Yeah, you mean paying the owner a salary so that they can survive and pay for their own families to survive? That's insane. That a business owner being able to make profit so that they can survive, to him, is skimming off the top? Wow. That's telling. That is really telling. That's disgusting. Yeah, how much they just hate anyone who owns a business. Second thought, you own a business. You are what you hate.
Business owners also don't like getting...
I just said, like, YouTube is literally a business.
Yes, it is. He might even have employees. I don't know how big his channel is exactly, but I looked at it earlier.
I think like almost 2 million.
He almost assuredly has employees, then. I hope you pay him. Are they in a union? I wonder. Probably not.
Getting taxed. This approach to government spending partly relies on the ability of governments to delete money. Business owners who accumulate money by paying their workers less than what they bring in for the company.
Dude, he's got 2 million subs, you said? How is his production quality the same as mine, besides that he goes on camera a little bit more? And also he's retarded and has 2 million subs. Sorry, what?
Yeah, 1.7 million. 1.7.
God, people are so dumb. I'm not trying to lament my. I'm very happy with where I'm at.
Wait. He has a Patreon. Let me check.
Oh, I don't like to check. I don't like to snoop on people like that.
Oh, you do not want to know.
Okay, now I'm curious. How much does he make on his Patreon a month?
The absolute minimum is 2 million, and he has 7,000 members.
Okay, so
he is making
at least $7,000 a month from Patreon.
No, like the minimum. Oh yeah. There is like the thing, but like this guy's making like at minimum maybe $10,000 at minimum. Yeah. He definitely has more.
That's a lot. It's a lot of money. But it's just sorry. I even know the stock footage website he uses. It's the same that I use. It's called Shutter or oh my god, not Shutterstock. What's it called? Storyblocks. I can't even recognize it's the same. Which, by the way, Storyblocks is not expensive.
By the way, this is not even like his only source of income. Like even besides YouTube, he does run a podcast with Hakeem and Ugopnik, the D program. Yeah. Ironic. And these guys. Wait, let me check. I know they also have a Patreon.
Look, I'm not saying like make money, but then don't be weird like this. And talk about how you know. Well, of course money's fake to him. Of course money's fake to him. He's got too much of it.
The D program makes 17,000 euros per month. Like
split 3 ways.
He is getting Yeah, I mean, if you split it 1/3, Patreon and YouTube, like this guy is literally upper class.
Oh, by every definition. By every definition, yeah.
Company would very much like to keep that stolen wealth and don't care at all about public projects that benefit everybody. So
What public projects? Why will you not give specifics? Oh, because you know that the government spends recklessly all the time. In terms of where to post the video, by the way, real quick, I just wanted to say this because Stan asked in the chat. There should be like a shilling thing here. There was, or is it just, yeah, okay. So in general, there's a page called #shill. That's just for people to post, if you have any videos, and that's for everybody, if you have videos of yours or things that you've made, you can always post them in the shill channel on Broken Ground, which again is linked in the description if you want to join our Discord server. Anywho, sorry. Thank you. Let's go back to it.
they lobby governments and pay accountants to find ways to not pay taxes and store their wealth somewhere else.
Yeah. Duh. That's kind of part of the problem too. I mean, that's inevitably going to happen. So when the government gives people these giant grants, you know what they do with it? They just go and store it. They don't spend it on shit. Yeah, how is he like figuring out some little bits of it, but he can't connect the dots? Like, dude, 90 IQ, homie.
Even when they are taxed, because these capitalists, these business owners are in charge of setting prices and wages, any taxation on businesses can often just be passed on to workers and consumers.
Yeah.
Through price hikes, wage cuts, extended hours,
Yeah.
lower benefits, and on and on. And these here are the limits of MMT and the point where a little Marxism comes in.
Oh, great.
MMT accurately describes the power of the government to spend, but it doesn't take into account
Not
the
really.
power of the capitalist class to be upset about it. And in a class society like ours, that's a problem. The government can't go bankrupt. It can
Yes, it
spend money
can.
on all sorts of cool stuff. But when it does, it has
I'm still waiting for him to give me an example of what the government can spend money on that's cool besides universal healthcare. Which clearly he's in favor of. But all kinds of cool stuff. What else? All kinds of cool stuff? The government wastes constantly.
to get its permission slip signed by the ruling class first. If anything it does gets in the way of profit, the big chunk of money that only a few people get to keep, it will only do it if there's fire in the streets and it doesn't have a choice.
Wow, what a weird idea that people would only do something if it gives them some kind of benefit. That's just called basic psychology.
Wow, that is wrong.
Yeah, it's almost like people are driven by self-interest. Everyone, not just the wealthy elites. You too. Everyone's driven by self-interest to some degree. You are not this idea that they portray themselves as these ultimate altruists. You should be I mean, you're a business owner again. You're making sounds like about $15,000 a month minimum, something like that. Not including what money you make from your YouTube channel, just from Patreon. Are you just redistributing that? Now, I don't normally like to say that kind of stuff, but when people come out here with this kind of opinions, then you need to illustrate to me that you are living your beliefs. I don't believe in these things.
I just remembered, Aiden, you're gonna love this. Your Second Thought used to have a second channel where he, tried to hold in your laughter, flexed his sports cars.
You told me about this. Yeah, that he's like a sport car channel where he review them or.
Here's the thing. I know a lot of these lefties will then pull up the iPhone Venezuela. Here's the thing. It's not about the fact that he has and makes a lot of money.
No, it's not. That's not
how
it.
he uses and how he acts upon his principles. Does he actually act upon his principles with all that money? All the socialist stuff he promotes? It's not about the fact that he makes a lot of money. It's how he spends it and how he works with it. That is the issue here. Because I know this may sound bizarre, but people should act upon their beliefs and values when they have the ability to do so.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I mean, again, I'm a libertarian. I don't, this doesn't apply to me. This is not the way I think. Now, I believe in altruism. I think that altruism is a great thing, and I believe, in charity and giving. And when I get an opportunity to, I do like to give to charity, and I always have my whole life. But it's not on me, because in terms of having to do it in a structured way because I'm not a socialist or a communist. When this is the thing that you're espousing, I think you need to, like, illustrate that you were living it to a certain degree. And I mean, that's the same thing you find with all these people. It's with Hassan Piker. It's with all of these guys. I mean, Hassan is obviously the most obvious example, or the most extreme example, living in his mansion and complaining about stuff. Now he's, again, threatening to top himself because he only has 13,000 live viewers. Woo! Okay. Fucking insane. But yeah, that's ridiculous. Practice what you preach a little bit, dude. Just a little bit, please. I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. Is he donating to some? Is he working with some leftist organization? Grassroots
not
stuff?
That I know of, but not that I know of, but it is possible. We just don't know about it.
Yeah, he might be. If he is, good for him. But I think if you're gonna preach it, you better practice it.
The government can feed the homeless, free people of debt, fund...
No.
He really thinks debt can just
Poof.
evaporate.
Yeah.
Okay, government does have government does have the ability to cancel debt when it's generous. Okay, sure, it can, and it actually has, but that doesn't mean it should always. There is a reason why debt even exists as a concept.
And the thing is, too, okay, let's say that the government were to do what the left was demanding Biden would do, which was to erase all student loan debt. Huge amounts of money that these people have racked up. Here's what that does. First of all, it doesn't get erased, it gets passed on. Everyone now pays for your student loan debt via taxes. Two, that does not aid with the incredibly high cost of universities. Because, I mean, at least they're going to get paid something, I suppose, maybe, slowly over time. A lot of people just duck their student loans for their entire lives. It doesn't incentivize the universities, however, to decrease their tuitions. In fact, it incentivizes them to increase them exponentially because they know that the government will keep paying for it. If the government says we're going to pay for student loan debt, then why should universities not charge even more exorbitant fees? How much does it cost a year to go to Harvard? $46,000 a year or something to that extent? Well, why not charge $146,000 a year? What's the difference? The government is just going to print more money and the taxpayers are going to pay for it. So why not charge whatever the hell you feel like? That's the downstream effect of this kind of thinking.
And by the way, like, do American universities and such have stipendiums?
What is that? Is a what?
Okay, so you don't even have you don't even have that concept.
I might just not be familiar with it, but I mean, I'm an academic, so.
Here in Europe, I mean, that's how it works in Bosnia and the EU. A stipendium is basically like a financial assistance for students.
For example, yeah. We do have we call it student aid, or it's something called FAFSA, Federal Student Aid. So you can actually basically get, that's a loan from the government that anyone can apply for, and the government pretty much gives it to everybody. So you can take out a loan from the government.
Sometimes it is actually completely free or like half free. Like you only have to like pay like the other half of it, because it's mainly used for like if a student, for example, has the ability, he's like very smart, but he doesn't have like the financial ability to actually sign up for university, then, his knowledge is tested at like a test or something, and then the government approves like a stipendium to, actually assist this person who really needs to go to university to like, actually go to university and afford it. And those who, and honestly, to me, like, this isn't even that bad of an idea, because if you have like a poor guy like from a village who is really, really, really smart, but he wants to become a doctor, but he can't become a doctor because of financial burdens, then I believe he should be helped out. But I don't think that should apply to literally everyone.
Is that true, guys in the chat? FAFSA, is that hard to get now? Sorry, when I was going to college, FAFSA was just like everybody got a FAFSA. If they applied for it. That was 2008 when I last asked anybody about it. But the other thing is, here we just called it, in the U.S. we just call it a scholarship. If you like have, and that's given out on an individual university basis. So if the university looks at your grades and your achievements and says, this person seems like someone we want to invest in because they're going to go forward to make our university's name look good, then you don't have to pay. I didn't pay to go to undergraduate. I was actually paid to go to grad school, but that's because I was working at the school. and doc school. I didn't know FAFSA had changed that much, guys. Yeah, in 2008, it was just like, you get a FAFSA, and you get a FAFSA, and you get a FAFSA. It was everywhere. But I guess, yeah, it's a long time ago now, guys. It's, 14 years. Oh, I'm so old. But yeah, I mean, that's how I got through university, was on scholarships.
And then in Boston, and then in Germany, here we actually have what's called a BAföG system, which is basically Germany has like a lot of vocational schools. In some you are directly hired by a company, and you also get money by working. But in other ones, they are like more entirely schools, so you don't actually earn anything. And in these ones, there is the BAföG, which it's basically like, if you apply for it, it's basically like a monthly salary you get that you never have to pay back. And it also like depends on whether you live like how much you get depends on like if you live alone, if you have if you live with parents who are very financially stable. So for example, like the absolute bottom, like the absolute minimum, if you like live with both parents and they're both financially stable, you get like 240 euros per month.
And you don't have to pay that back? Do you work for the university while doing that?
Yeah, it's completely free. Like it's basically like you don't have to do anything. It's basically a salary for going to school, where you don't actually work for money. It's, to financially support students because, so they don't have to get a second job, which can interfere with their studies and such. Yeah, those things.
Yeah, see, I don't know. That'll sound like a boomerism. I think that I would reserve stuff like that for I think that if the university, like I said, wants to even pay you and pay for you, I think you have to show value to the university. That's my opinion on it. There's already some people who are totally worthless that go through the university system who do not deserve the advanced degrees that they have. But so again, that my fear when I hear stuff like that is that to me sounds like it doesn't encourage people to necessarily strive. And I know that that's going to come off like a boomer pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing, but I think we do need a little bit more of that in society. I think it's more helpful than it is deleterious. I'm not saying that there don't need to be social safety nets or there aren't good reasons for it. And I'm, of course, very much in favor of private charity. But I think being just paid to go to college, that seems like a lot of wasted money, just to me. I don't know. That's my opinion on that, though. Shall we finish this and then move into the history rage?
Of course.
Well, I don't know, because I'm a bit weird on the university stuff just because I have a background in academia.
Renewable energy, reduce working hours by law without cutting pay. But these kinds of things suck for profit seekers. They're great for humanity, but they're terrible for capitalists. The small percentage of humanity that benefits when people are forced to work and buy at an inflated price.
Small number of people who are forced to work. Everyone's forced to work eventually, dude. Unless you're born... This is the thing. Forced to work. I don't get this. Unless you are insanely privileged and come from an insanely wealthy background, everyone is forced to work. It's like, this is the nature of humankind. I don't know. I can't imagine not working. Not doing something. What do you do? Again, you sit around and write poems all day, I guess? Dude, I don't get it. I don't understand this. I'd go insane. If you give me like a week and told me I didn't have to do anything at all, I'd go nuts. I'd lose my mind. And maybe that's just more boomer mentality for me, but I don't understand how people aren't driven to do something, to do work of some sort. I don't know. It's... And I know that I'm a YouTuber, so I know that that's not like a big thing. But apparently that's a novel idea, or that's a increasingly novel idea amongst people who make internet content. Because according to Hassan,
yeah,
it's like
let's just go on and finish with this already.
Sorry.
Universal healthcare is great. It might even save businesses money, but it makes workers less desperate. And that small percentage of business owners has the power and the wealth to stop the kind of spending that would make people less desperate. I'll summarize this video another way. Take away the need for profit. Take away the power of the ruling class. In short, take away capitalism. And
How are you gonna do that, dude? Of course, the People's Revolution, I'm sorry. Yeah, take away just everything that makes society, old society structures, okay. Take away need. Yeah. This is luxury space communism is what he's talking about. Yeah, tell me when you invent your what's that thing in Star Trek? Oh my god, my brain just died. The thing that just produces food. I can't believe how much Trekkie I can't even think of it. Come on, guys, in the chat. Just go up and say like, yeah, I'd like some plomeek soup, please. And the dispenser's just gonna give it to you. That's not how this works. You do not live in luxury space communism. The replicator, thank you, Hasso. You don't have a replicator. You don't have dilithium crystals. This shit doesn't work.
The only limit to doing cool stuff becomes the resources available. We have the doctors for universal healthcare, the housing for free homes, the farms to...
You gonna pay those doctors? Apparently, with what? With the money you just printed, I guess. Yeah.
Feed everyone. The machines for...
Who's gonna build the houses? How are you gonna pay them?
Infrastructure. The technology to switch away from fossil fuels. We can spend on these resources and bring them into action. Let workers control the economy democratically, and the new money we create can be spent well without the need to enrich the middleman. We don't need to worry about how we're going...
He means the middle class, okay.
...to pay for that. There are plenty of resources in our economy waiting to be used for the betterment of people's lives. The only obstacle left is how much improving people's lives costs the capitalist ruling class. Okay, I understand that this is a horribly complicated topic.
No, it's not. It's not. It's actually pretty simple, and you're just a fucking moron.
Doesn't make much sense at first. In about 15 minutes, I've tried to explain something that is in complete contradiction with how most of us are told government spending works our entire lives.
No, it's how it works.
So I'm sure this short video...
Go ahead, sorry.
It's almost like it's not how it works.
Right. Well, the way that he's described it is not how it works. He's depicted an extremely insane version of it. Yeah, that's why it didn't make sense. Jesus Christ.
Video will have left you with more questions than answers. To help, I've left a few videos and books in the description to help you learn more about this topic. Specifically, I want to highlight One Dime's 2 fantastic videos on taxation and government deficits. They were my introduction to this topic, and One Dime was kind enough to answer an unreasonable amount of my questions to make the video you just watched accurate.
Oh, okay, so his information largely comes from another YouTuber. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, guys, by the way. I oftentimes will have people cite my videos as sources. I would prefer if people didn't do that and cited the sources that I cite, but because I'm so autistic about how I cite sources, I think it's probably okay to do that. If you're citing it as a source. But yeah, that's telling that his information comes from another bread tuber. Makes sense.
So please, show him some love.
Yeah,
this is a really...
Honestly, do we even need to, like, finish, like...
No, we got it.
Do we even have to...
We got the gist.
Oh, shit. Wait.
I can hear you, Lav. Wolfgang, are you still there? Because we're gonna move into the...
I'm it.
Because we're gonna move to the history part so you can unleash your rage. So this is... Yeah, we got everything we needed to out of that absolute just sludge fest of... Dude, I don't know... all I'd say is that I can't... If I make, like, one little error in a video, like, just... Something is just, like, a little bit off, or... just like there's a little image error or something, or I cited something at like the wrong time. It's still in the description, but maybe the citation's wrong on the screen or something like that. I freak out. I'm like, oh no, I made a mistake. I can't imagine the cojones it takes to just go on the internet and just and make a video like that and just talk shit.
Okay, I'm here.
Oh.
Okay,
Hello?
I'm here. It fucking bugged out. Wait, my internet died again.
Oh, okay.
Oh yes. Oh, you already started a new video.
No, just put it on. We haven't played it yet. I was just
okay,
yeah, I could tell you were having
just,
some issues, but just to reiterate what I was saying though is that yeah, I can't imagine just being like, I'm just gonna talk some shit, just gonna say some shit.
Okay, well anyway, yeah, Wolfgang, ready to dismantle this stuff?
Let's go. This is from again Balkan Odyssey, made possible by his patrons as well. So this is everything you know about history is probably wrong. Alright, let's learn about how everything we know about history is probably wrong, guys. You ready? Let's go.
Alright, let's go. You hear me?
Everything you know about history is probably wrong. Not because you've been fed objectively wrong information with the truth concealed through some...
Okay.
Yeah, you're cool. Alright.
Okay, good.
Conspiracy, but because the way we learn history in educational and academic environments, but also in the context of hobbies and entertainment, is inherently flawed. The way we approach the investigation of historical figures and events is, to put it mildly, embarrassingly shallow and superficial. So much so that many who get to call themselves historians and academics end up making a mockery out of the entire field.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I just want to say, I kind of agree with the point, but I'm not, but, you know, I cannot in good conscience accept that some guy that doesn't know any fucking thing about history at all, doesn't know basic historical concepts like how the fuck World War I started, to criticize other people. That's a bit hypocritical, to say the least.
Oh, okay, really? Well, if you, yeah.
Therefore, in the following
principle,
minutes,
I agree, but...
I will elaborate on why this is most definitely the case, by pointing out the shortcomings and inadequacies of the default philosophy that dominates academic discourse in the 21st century. Then, with a thorough understanding of the deficiencies of our current understanding of history, our horizons will be open for an improved, scientifically grounded method of investigating the past, one that allows us to understand it in all its ever-evolving, perpetual development, from the tiniest detail up to the largest of paradigms. So, let us begin with a critique of a popular approach towards explaining historical events, the one that you may hear in your college or university classrooms, or perhaps from your favorite history YouTuber. Namely, there seems to be a favorite tendency of presenting historical events through personal narratives of highly influential and great historical figures and unique individuals as the main protagonist.
Oh no, is he about to critique the great man theory?
Of course he is.
Oh.
I just want to let one thing, state one thing first. There are absolutes. You have black and white. In one side, you have the great man theory, where everything in history is about like exceptional individuals.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of the spectrum, you have the it's everything about like a bunch of people one day had the brilliant idea to crown Emperor Napoleon. Like out of nowhere. You have the two extremes. Historians are in the middle. They don't go for either. It is true that in the past, especially in the 1950s, Spengler, all those retards, they tended to be a lot more great man theory. But nowadays, historiography is very much, more middle ground, I suppose. I'm not sure what, the right
which
English
Spengler?
word. Oswald.
Okay.
Yeah, the German one. His work is very great man theory. I completely with the Greeks.
He's the one who wrote that book, all the 4chan chuddies love, The Decline of the West.
So yeah. I have just ordered Decline of the West Part 1 and 2.
I mean, as a philosophical book, I don't really care about it.
If Scrump's still here, he's gonna get pissed off at what you just said.
Well, the thing is, Spengler is not an historian. He's a philosopher. That's the main difference about him. If you want to read about history, you read an historian. If you want to read about philosophy, you read a philosopher. Very simple about it.
Yeah, I anticipated it was going to be political philosophy.
Though to be honest, history and politics is kind of related, because there are philosophers and they apply their philosophies into history, and that's how like without Marx there would be no Soviet Union and communism and such. So if understanding the philosophy behind like the state and such behind these figures is also pretty important.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I don't deny it. It's just that understanding by itself, it's a bit meaningless. If you don't have the whole picture, and you have to be very well trained. You have to have, you basically have to have specific training to understand the whole picture, because we have economic, we have political, we have philosophical, we have social, we have personal. You have a shit ton of factors that play together, and historians are usually, not all of them, because you have stupid people, of course, like David Irving, but most of the times you have great historians like Richard Evans, people that spend decades, of their careers studying certain topics, and they can go incredibly deep about it. You have those type of work, and then you have, a philosopher, which, has a more superficial understanding of history. That's the way I see it.
Okay. All right. Well, I've not read it yet. I bought, but because I'm going on a big trip in like a couple weeks, so I bought both Part 1 and 2, and then Imperium, which is like a response to it. So We'll read all three of those over the next.
Imperium?
Yeah.
Wait,
Wait,
did you say
Imperium
Is
of
that
the,
from- you mean
what's-
from-
The Philosophy and History of Politics.
No, the author. What was his name? Wasn't it? You know the one,
Yoki?
right? Lavender, the TNO funny guy.
like Jockin something Jockin?
Yeah, Yoki.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoki.
Yeah. Oh
I
no.
mean-
Oh no, are you? Oh, okay, you're judging. These are the books I was recommended.
I mean,
Oh no.
like, where do I even start with Yoki? I mean, let's just move on. That's a better way. Let's move on.
All right.
Protagonists of these events, also known as the Great Man Theory. The decisive historical role is attributed to the personality and natural attributes of the given historical figures, their greatness or malice, their personal plans and ambitions, leadership abilities, superior intellect, or divine inspiration. Despite being extremely intuitive and helpful for visualizing complex historical events, this approach ends up creating shallow caricatures of entire movements and social dynamics, personifying them into one single individual, which is nothing short of tragic for the pursuit of any meaningful historical analysis. Now,
Yeah,
here's
but
a few
hang on for a
examples
second.
of
There's
what
a
I mean.
reason why that's the case, though, just from a historical perspective. We just don't have the records of the lives of everyday regular people. And by the way, this is the case for all of our lives, okay? In 100 years, no one will fucking remember who any of us are. For the most part, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't even matter that we have this access to the internet where everyone can just say any fucking thought that pops into their head and it's stored in perpetuity on the internet. It doesn't matter. History is written by great men. I do think that's true. In terms of what history is remembered by, is the works of great men. I think that's accurate. Doesn't mean that other people don't exist, obviously. But great men, and I would agree with that kind of prospect of the theory, obviously, is that that's who ends up being important for understanding a lot of history. Doesn't mean you shouldn't care about what regular people were doing. But that's how it's going to be inherently written down.
Mean by that? Firstly, the history of World War II is often retold as a consequence of the individual psychopathy and dark genius of Adolf Hitler, and a few others like him. His personal grand master plan to conquer the world because of his personal obsessions and phobias that he used to enchant the masses under his iron fist.
Okay. Before we go any further, I just want to say one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You may like, no, you probably, if you're a normal person, you don't like Hitler, of course.
Yeah.
And if you are, if you don't have all the fuses in your head, you probably like him, but you get the point. No matter what, it is undeniable that Hitler was a great orator.
Yeah, oh,
you know?
absolutely.
Like, I have studied Hitler and his speeches. And when you look at his speeches, you can see Hitler is incredibly, like, naturally talented. He's very expressive. He doesn't have to talk to express a sentiment, Like it or not, without Hitler's, remarkable skills, or oratorial skills, the Nazis would not have gone anywhere. Well, what was the Nazi movement? The Nazi movement was Hitler. Hitler was the face of the Nazi movement.
Yeah.
People voted on the Nazis. They didn't vote on the Nazis. They voted on Hitler. No one really cared who the fuck Himmler was. No one cared who the fuck, Bormann was.
Mm-hmm.
People might have cared who Goering was, because Goering was a war hero, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
The face of the movement, the Führer, after all, the whole Nazi movement is based on the Führer principle. That the Führer is always right. It's the person of Hitler. Without him, there is no Nazism. I think, as already starting with this premise, is incredibly flawed to approach this subject of World War II.
I mean, not to mention, like, even today, even after his death, his sentiment is still felt like among all these neo-Nazis today who are like, oh my god, go watch Europa the Last Battle, we beat the wrong enemy, dude. Like for example, there is a YouTuber, I don't really want to name him here, and there was this guy who made, basically this YouTuber made like a German, history videos from the German perspective. I think, Wolfgang, you know who I'm talking about here.
Who, internet historian?
No, not internet historian. Basically this guy is like a British guy who makes...
Oh, that retard! I know that retard, yes.
And basically, there was this guy with like 5,000 subscribers who made a 2-hour video responding to that guy, like using historical documents and using all the evidence to like completely debunk all of his claims. And now here's the kicker. That video got to like 200,000, that response video got to 200,000 subscribers. And then that guy, who the guy is responding to, before the response video, he had 60,000 subscribers, that neo-Nazi who makes these videos. And then after that video released, he now has around 110,000 just because of that response video. Yeah. Like these guys literally saw like respond. They instantly went, oh no, that is automatically wrong. This guy is right. No, you are just spewing Jewish propaganda. He is right. Like I will subscribe to him now. Like,
by the way, Lavin, do you know that
happens.
recently they released a neo-Nazi documentary that is fucking 12 hours long?
Wait. I watched Europa: The Last Battle. I watched the entire thing. It was okay. Do you want the summary? Do you want the summary?
I watched like the first half an hour, then I had to tune out. I couldn't anymore.
I heard about it, but I not watched it now.
Basically, it claims that the Nazis. There is actually like a good meme I saw about where like, I'm gonna just summarize it like this. The entire document basically paints this picture that the Nazis weren't racialists. They weren't racial supremacists. They loved every race in the entire world.
Okay.
They just hated international Jewry. They just wanted to like save civilization from the Jews. They loved absolutely everyone. They weren't racist. Mustache Man was heckin' wholesome, and that is why the Jews wanted to destroy him. The end. That is the entire summary of the thing.
I swear to my dear God, if the Jews were as powerful as like neo-Nazis make them out to be, then either the Jews are actually superior beings, or neo-Nazis are just cuckboys that cannot win anything.
And here's the thing, like this thing I mentioned about suddenly these guys flocking to that channel and subscribing like really in echo chambers, like they don't want to hear anything that goes against their word. They're gonna call it Jewish propaganda and such. I actually have like a friend who is actually like a neo-Nazi, but he is like more the quote-unquote educated kind who actually knows his stuff rather than just, repeat all this shit.
Yeah, 1488 posting, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually, I asked him, like, why are neo-Nazis so extremely stubborn about everything? And you know what his response was? He said, quote, because these people don't care about history and they love idealism to a massive degree. It is a fermented belief that everything Hitler did was, as by extension to his mythical stature, completely true and good. They lack objectivity because they find that in a supposedly objective environment, everyone blames Hitler for anything. And when they find out that around 80% of it was wrong, they believe the other 20% can't be right either. That is how he replied.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And like again, this is also what Wolfgang was talking about because of like how brilliant like Hitler, or orator and stuff. Like his influence is still seen today, where like people still genuinely follow him like some sort of god that can't do wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Though, I mean, that's a natural psychological function. Though, if you find out that like a lot of what you believe is incorrect or misinformation, or at least not the full truth, then yeah, it makes people skeptical about the rest. So that's how you end up with people, falling down those kinds of rabbit holes on stuff like that. Anywho, shall we?
Yeah. Take one of Jordan Peterson's lessons as an example.
One of the things about Hitler was that he was very disgust sensitive, and a lot of his hatred for non-Aryans. So imagine inside the Aryan box, it was all uniform. Outside, it was all parasites and predators. Hitler bathed 4 times a day. And he was also an admirer of willpower, so he could stand like this for 8 hours in the back of a car. And the thing about conscientious people is they're very willpower oriented. He cleaned up all the factories. Like he went in there and fumigated them. It was part of the law. He went on a public health campaign to get rid of tuberculosis, and he got rid of the bugs in the factories as well. He used Zyklon B. That's an insecticide, and that's the gas that he used in the gas chambers eventually.
Moreover, Leaders of the communist movement, such as Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, or Josip Broz Tito, are often portrayed as power-hungry dictators who usurped revolutionary movements with their personal...
Okay,
Whoa,
I'm sorry.
Whoa. Yeah, whoa, the pivot here, real quick. So I'm sorry, his claim here that people like Jordan Peterson there for just talking about things that Hitler did that weren't like abjectly horrific, therefore that's bad, but then he's just going to do the same thing for communist leaders, and that's good. Where he's going to say, well, maybe they weren't completely...
I just want to say one thing about, like, his point.
Mm-hmm.
Using Jordan Peterson to talk about history is... it's a very bad strategy. I mean, Jordan Peterson's a psychologist. Is not... Yeah. Like, I remember at one time I saw one of his takes that's... I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit. Jordan Peterson said something along the lines of, while the Nazis were losing the war, Hitler sped up the Holocaust because he wanted to cause more destruction. You know, that's absolute nonsense, you know. I don't think I have to tell you that if you are involved in mass murder and you are losing the war, you kind of want, you know, to make sure the witnesses don't testify against you, you know. But you know, Jordan Peterson is not necessarily an historian, you know.
But I don't think that's not what Peterson was even doing.
I understand why he's using Peterson. Yeah, you know, he's trying to make it a straw man. You know, here's Peterson. Here's me, a retard. I'm gonna debate Peterson now, and then I'm gonna win, so my point looks better. You know, I just think it's a very dishonest strategy. You know, to put on.
Yes, it is dishonest, and again,
if you want to debate history or make a video like that, use Richard Evans. You know, someone that is actually competent, let's just say, about this subject.
It's just not. Yeah, it's not Peterson's there. I think all he was saying there is that like I think it was just saying that like Hitler wasn't Satan on Earth, which is how he's portrayed. But yeah, let's go ahead.
Personal ambitions to subject entire nations under their tyrannical rule. Such one-man dictatorships are, in fact, a fetishized fantasy of the average Western liberal, who sees their beloved liberal democracy as the complete opposite of the tyrannical totalitarian nightmare over there in Russia and China, of those alien and faraway oriental dictatorships where everyone must succumb to the will of one maniac at the top. Such oversimplified, fantastical representations of, in actuality, very complex political and socioeconomic systems.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. So this is literally what he said, is that, like, Jordan Peterson saying Hitler wasn't, like, this most evil person ever who just did horrible things for no reason. That's a bad thing. But you need to have a lot of deference and look at the complexities and the nuances of these communist leaders. Dude, come on. Okay. Whatever. Go ahead. Just, that's silly.
Has been engraved into our subconscious, particularly when talking about actually existing socialism, and the supposedly totalitarian nature of socialist regimes.
Oh, supposedly.
Something I've already talked about in great detail in another video of mine. Here's a few examples of how ridiculous this kind of narrative sounds, with echoes of Red Scare propaganda and McCarthyism from the Cold War still haunting our collective
I knew the moment he pulled up like the map of Ukraine, he was gonna talk about a whole lot more.
Obviously.
Of course he's gonna deny it.
Oh, is he? Okay, yeah.
No. The thing about communists, denying the Holocaust? No, impossible. Denying the Holodomor? Yeah, sure, who cares?
But again, he's just showing, like, why would you make a video like this where you're just showing your hypocrisy? Like, in 5 minutes he's already showed it. You're gonna do it again, right here.
Aiden, this is literally their entire, like, this is actually their Marxist philosophy. Like, when we do it, it's okay, but when they do it, it's in their philosophy.
Yes, right. Right, because we're doing it to achieve the revolution. This is, you know, we have to do it. It's part of praxis. We must do this to overcome the horrible bourgeoisie. So yes, it's justified when we do it, when they do it, or when anyone does anything that in any way goes against our revolution. It's genocide and terrible. Yeah, crazy though. Crazy to see it laid out this just directly, just this overtly.
Imagination.
It was genocide, carried out by a dictator who wanted to keep Ukraine under his control
God,
and would
let's
do
not
everything
bring
in
Vox
his
into
power
this
to
shit.
cover it up for decades. And Joseph Stalin wanted complete control of it. Around the same time, Stalin introduced a 5-year plan that would eventually give him control of Ukrainian agriculture. In Ukraine, the plan gave Stalin direct control over grain production.
Tito had destroyed the last potential threat to his personal rule and came out on
Wait,
top.
is he actually going
Tito.
after the Cold War?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, is he not like?
No, the Cold War is like a YouTube channel. You know the Great War is like make videos about World War II and World War I day by day. The Cold War is like similar, and like they try to be as neutral as possible when analyzing things like the Soviet Union, and communists still fucking cry over it. Oh no, the Soviet Union was utopia paradise. What do you mean they didn't? They had secret police and mass arrests and executions. No, that's illegal. You see, the Constitution says no death penalty. That means no one was actually shot by Stalin.
Oh, of course not. No, Comrade Stalin never did anything wrong. So I'm wondering, he's gonna deny the Holodomor. I don't know why he's playing this Vox video, but I mean, like, is he gonna deny the decolonization? Or okay, let's see where he goes with this.
By means of multiple purges over the years, Tito destroyed any potential rival to himself, making Yugoslavia reliant on him too much politically.
Furthermore, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is universally portrayed as a display of the evil and malice of one supervillain, who is steering...
Yeah, sure, it's portrayed that way. Well, I don't know if it's universally. By idiots, again, who are historically kind of illiterate and don't understand that this isn't just, like, something that Putin pulled out of his ass. But, again, that requires some level of historical literacy and understanding the relationship between these two countries. I don't know.
In the end of the day, he's picking at the village idiot, putting him on a pedestal and attacking the village idiot.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's created a straw man, obviously, yeah.
The destiny of 100 million people and the entire country's military apparatus for the purposes of his own evil master plan to conquer the world. The whole government is portrayed as hostages to his impulsive mood swings, ideas, and commands.
And what you really have to understand here is how that history is transposed onto the brain of one man, this guy. But really, it's the story about what Vladimir Putin really wants. And Putin is hating this, while Putin himself starts to chip away at Russian institutions, making them weaker and weaker. He's silencing his rivals, and he's consolidating power in himself. But Putin can't handle this. He is in total denial. Like an ex-boyfriend who can't handle his ex-girlfriend starting to date someone else, Putin can't let Ukraine go. He won't let go.
Oh.
And finally, one of my favorite examples of this shallow approach would be the event that triggered the First World War, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand by Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo. This single act.
Oh, maybe I
often
misunderstood his whole
lazily
premise here.
attributed
He's saying that all of these are simplistic ways of understanding historical events? In which case I actually largely... Okay. Well, I actually kind of agree with that then. They are simplistic ways, but that's how people tend to understand things. Okay. All right. I'm not actually off yet, then, on the premise.
Sole responsibility for the start of World War I, as a display of maniacal terrorism by a Serbian teenager who, independently of all societal and geopolitical dynamics, single-handedly provoked the biggest conflict in human history at that point in time, with the pull of a trigger. Now, even though you may not see anything wrong in these examples, I assure you that, as soon as you're acquainted with the proper alternative, the defects in this approach will become more than apparent. Namely, in all four of these examples, we bear witness to a one-dimensional caricature, an idealistic oversimplification of, in actuality, extremely complex and multifaceted chains of events that would require hundreds of pages of proper analysis to even scratch their surface.
I agree, though.
What we often ingest in this form is the fast food of social sciences.
Yeah?
An indolent and low-effort version of historical narratives that perfectly accommodates our embarrassingly bad attention spans and goldfish memory. While
cognitive mindfulness. I agree with this so far.
Of some sort. It's nothing but an insult to your intellect. The great man.
No, it's actually not an insult to your intellect. People only have so much time and cognitive energy to expend.
Of the hyper-individualist insistence that individual people are the sole sources of human ingenuity, due to their inherent genetical and intellectual superiority, or, as it is often told, as a result of their...
Okay, I want to say that no one has ever claimed that particular individuals, by themselves, are the reason why history exists. Like, what he has done here is basically pick, basically he has done a strawman, to prove his point. He has picked a strawman that no one has argued for, made it out as if that's what the status quo, quote-unquote, believes, and now he's attacking that strawman that no one believes, and if you ask any historian about this, they would say, no, this is fucking retarded.
So, I think the problem here is that, yeah, he's talking about average people, he's not talking about historians. He's just talking about, like, what the average person
the entire
thinks.
point of this sector is to say the status quo currently of history believes this.
Oh, he's saying that this is...
Academia and historians, yes.
Well, that's absolutely fucking retarded. What are you talking about? That's not,
Like,
that's not accurate at all. What historian is saying that kind of stuff about Putin? I mean, there's, Mearsheimer, I guess. But Mearsheimer's not blowing smoke up Putin's ass either. He's just saying, like, look, there's a reason why that happened. And we called it 30 years ago, not just Mearsheimer, a whole bunch of other people.
Like, there's one strategy that he uses in his videos that is very noticeable, that when he starts the video, he will give you, like, a premise, like the status quo, and then he will go on and on and on and on for, like, half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
By the point you reach the end, you kind of forgot the start, you know? So, you no longer remember if he's talking about, like, what people believe, what academia believes, what historians believe. It's a very interesting strategy that takes away your attention, your brain loses the focus completely.
Because I already got confused by that.
Tireless grind and hustle. This declaration presumes that all human beings are fully independent agents that interact with their environment through their free will, that live in a vacuum and are in no way conditioned by environmental factors that may be out of their control.
Who believes that?
They possess full agency.
Besides, like, full-on tabula rasa idiots. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I don't think most people believe that.
Over their own traits, thoughts, and actions, and their genius is therefore worshipped as an admirable display of conscious individual brilliance. These geniuses are thus supposedly the driving force of history. They are the vessels of scientific, technological, spiritual, and societal progress.
Well, who else is?
They represent the main characters, the protagonists of human history. They suppose...
But that's just a way of understanding history, because you can't know about every individual person, dingus.
Supposedly start wars, conquer nations, they build cities and monuments, they come up with inventions, they cure diseases, and so on and so on. A quick repudiation of this entire worldview doesn't require much.
Okay.
All that needs to be said is that it wasn't the pharaohs that built the pyramids. It wasn't Caesar who built the Colosseum.
But under whose directive?
Okay. I want to make a quiz.
Okay.
I just want to make a very quick quiz.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of the pyramids?
It's a tomb.
For whom?
For the pharaoh.
Do I have to say anything else?
Exactly. It's under whose directive, though, for all of these things? Yeah, okay, yes, individual people built the pyramids. Individual people served as citizens served in the Roman legions and engaged in the conquest.
But without these pharaohs and their ideas, these workers would have never built these things.
Yes, they wouldn't have done it by their own volition.
The workers don't just suddenly... can't just literally come up with, we're gonna build this, and they just build it. No, they always build under directive. They get instructed, and they build it. Yes, without the workers, this build would not be possible. But without, like, the directive of these things would also still not be possible. It's a syncretic relationship.
Yes, exactly,
Symbiotic
precisely.
relationship that works together.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like, Rome wouldn't have conquered the world if it weren't for the people who served in the army. But at the same time, if there weren't Roman leaders, military, and Caesars to direct those legions, then they wouldn't have done it. It would have happened in the first place. Yes, it's a
you need the agency of the individual as well as the agency of the collective.
Yes.
Like you cannot exist without both. You know, like in the end of the day, this video is very much 80 or 80.
Yes.
You know, on one side you have there's only independent. What's the word again? Independent. dependent. Just said the word for fuck's sake. You know, you have the collective, and then you
Right.
have the agency.
Individual.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
agency.
yeah, the agency of the individual.
But
And
exactly.
there's nothing between.
No, but it's clearly symbiotic. It's both. It like, you know, the leader can't, if you don't have anyone to lead, they're not a leader, and the people won't do something unless they're given a directive to. I mean, they'll do some things, but they're not going to go engage in a lot of these massive projects.
They don't want to go build like a bloody palace, you know,
Right,
if there's
yeah.
no fucking pharaoh.
Yeah.
Nor was it the emperors that built the Great Wall of China.
Okay.
It was workers, people like you and me, who collectively toiled away for millions upon millions of hours, carrying billions of tons of building materials over their own backs to build these impressive landmarks.
Why?
It wasn't the genius wizardry of any of these cults of personality that managed these impressive feats of...
Really? Yeah, Rome conquering the world wasn't or any of the great military generals. That wasn't any of their responsibility at all.
That's what I want to say. Without engineers, you know,
Sure.
the workers you could have 3 billion workers, you know, they will just build a pile of rocks.
Yep.
Without engineers.
They need an
We are
engineer.
talking about mathematics. We are talking about geometry. All of that stuff that people had to spend a lifetime learning to make plans and then tell the people, all right, according to this plan that I made, you're gonna do this. You know, it's just such a stupid way to analyze the world as a whole.
Exactly.
It's absolutely baffling.
Yeah, if it's just workers, no one is above anyone else, no one has greater authority, no one has greater power than anyone else, then yeah, go ahead and try and build the pyramids. Have just the workers do that. First of all, why would they be motivated to? Let's say that they are for some reason. It's a great people's project. They really want to build this. It's for some reason. This grand architectural project. Okay, they really want to build it. No one's going to be above anyone else in order to tell them, hey, you know, I've run some maths on this, and I think you got to build it this way. No, they'll build it upside down. They don't have any directive. It's absolutely stupid. This is why you need hierarchy.
Both of you are still assuming they would build it in the first place.
Exactly. Presuming they would build it in the first place, which they wouldn't be incentivized to. But yeah, ridiculous.
Construction. It was the collective effort of millions of minds and bodies accumulating and coordinating their abilities and knowledge.
This is dumb.
I know I'm being annoying. I just want to say there's only one architect. There's only one architect on the plans. There's no millions. There's only one guy that draw the plans.
Yep, exactly.
Throughout the millennia,
maybe a couple architects,
learning
but still
and correcting each other perpetually and interdependently. It was not the individual heroes and geniuses, but the general intellect of the human race.
How? Whoa!
What?
Not even a little bit. The collective general intellect, which, by the way, the research on that is real. You might want to recheck that one, my dude. That idea of the intelligence of the crowds is not so well held out and bore out as the madness of crowds is.
Wait, you're meaning to tell me that ordinary workers would have known how to build palaces without one guy drawing up the plans how to build it?
Yeah,
not just that. Like, you know, you have to take into account that you have to have mathematical foundations. You know, you have to make sure the building doesn't collapse. You have to make sure the building doesn't fall over. You know, there's so much stuff going on to building a small fucking building.
Yeah.
I just cannot understand. I just cannot go. My mind cannot comprehend how someone can say this with a straight face. It's just baffling to me.
Maybe he's just a true believer. I don't know. He truly thinks that if he and his friends get... Now here's what I'd like you to do then, dude. Balkan Odyssey, I want you to get together with your little commie friends, and I want you to go build a house. Tomorrow. Hey, have a project. Make it a project. You go build a house together. See how far you get. No one knows more than anyone else, right? Sorry, go ahead.
I think we can both see that he is trying to apply, class conflict to the entire idea of history.
Yeah.
But when he actually tries to apply it, it crumbles immediately because it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, exactly. But if you believe this truly, then go build a house. Put down the foundation and build a house. There you go.
Already tipped him that he has to build a foundation.
right.
And penicillin that built skyscrapers, dams, and bridges, or that indulged in self-destructive annihilation through great wars and conquests. These individual people who we praise and put on pedestals.
Self-annihilation through via great wars and conquest. We're talking about the Pax Romana, right? The largest, when the Roman Empire is at its largest, that brought in a lot of good things for the Roman people and to the other people that were involved in the empire in many ways. really opened up trade, opened up sharing of ideas and literacy, and literature, philosophy, engineering, mathematics. So, but who organized the conquering? Emperors, right?
You know, I actually would really like to see how he will challenge it. So when it's like workers building like some sort of structure, it is the workers who are responsible, but not those who, you know, actually gave the orders.
Right.
I want to see if you will apply this logic to everything. Like, it is not the bourgeois who started the war, it was the individual people because they chose.
No.
I
but you see,
mean-
Lava, the war is a bad thing. If it is a bad thing, it means it has to be the bourgeois. If it's a good thing, it's the worker.
I see. Right, of course. Right, because then, yeah, under that exact same logic, then if people engage in warfare, and let's say it's an unfounded war, like the war on terror or something in the United States that most people agree was horrific and stupid, and obviously a war for oil more than anything else. Well, then I'm sure he would love to blame average American citizens for that, just a guess, but you'd have to blame the average person for that because the workers did it, did they not? Oh well, good point though.
Pistols for their achievements are not to be discredited, but rather viewed in the larger context of the general intellect, as mere fruits of the gigantic tree of human knowledge, as the personifications and embodiments of centuries of collectively accumulated knowledge and abilities that clicked in a certain way inside of the mind of that individual, that connected the dots and articulated ideas in a useful way. And this applies to all scientists, authors, engineers, designers, philosophers, etc. Steve Jobs, for example, didn't invent the iPhone in the sense that he invented every single component and technology required.
No one believes that, though.
Hey, Aiden, if you don't invent steel, that means you cannot invent the car.
This is so pedantic. Like, nobody thinks that. Again, he's invented some idiot in his head to make fun of or to like knock down. Nobody thinks Steve Jobs invented the iPhone. Nobody thinks that the pharaohs themselves built the pyramids. Nobody thinks that Caesar himself, conquered the West. Nobody believes that stuff. These are talking about great people who inspired others or ordered others via their power to aid them in doing great things. Everyone knows that. This is so childish. I mean, it genuinely is childish.
To function and single-handedly manufactured every copy of the device. He is simply the face, the symbol of the rearrangement of existing, developed, and established technologies and methods in a particular way, through the labor and creativity of thousands of designers and engineers. Same goes for the likes of Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and others, who have appropriated the praise and credit for these achievements.
How would those things have happened, though, if it weren't for them? How does SpaceX fire rockets if it weren't for Elon Musk?
I have to say, using Ford there is very interesting. The whole point of Fordism is to make the most efficient production line by putting people. You have people specialize into one thing and they only do one thing. So you can get the most efficiency out of it. I just find it so contradictory, to the entire point. It's just a collective, that comes together and do things, like say.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It prima facie makes no sense.
Through the predatory exploitation and ultimate dismissal of the millions of minds that were involved in invention and production under their symbol.
Oh, that's a good point. So on the lich, actually, let me read some. One sec, guys. Sorry, I keep muting myself on stream, but you guys can accidentally hear me because I gotta keep clearing my throat. One sec. Sorry about that. Yeah, my terrible cold. Solon the Lich brought this up for 50 ARS. He says, once again, the Austrian mustache man did nothing wrong. It was the general intellect. According to this guy's theory, would that not be true?
I mean, that would pose a lot of questions, like a society just comes up and decides to do genocide, that would open a lot more doors than it closes.
I think, according to his theory, if it's not the great people who are doing this, who are giving these orders, and they're the ones being listened to, then it would seem that the people, the blame shouldn't be placed on Hitler or Goebbels Goring. And then it's on the German people, which he probably does agree with. I don't know. Maybe. Let me hit these other super chats that I missed just before we get too far in. Or should I wait till the end? Let's just get them now. Keza for £5 says, guys, I can discuss with you all the reality of engineering projects with my history after the stream if you're interested. Hit me up. Yeah, I'll let you know, Keza. I'm probably going to go to bed shortly afterwards as I'm still a bit sick. Keza for another £5 says, as someone who's knowledge in engineering and done projects like this, you have a chief engineer, and manager in these projects. Pure cap. Yeah, I know. Frog Jupiter for 2 says, I don't like Vox. They got this one right. Yeah, I guess so. Just some guy for 10 asks, Aiden, when will you be on Tim Pool? I will be on Tim Pool show on the 17th of April. That's a Wednesday. Can't wait to see more collabs with Andrew Wilson. He said they'd happen. Yeah, Andrew said he'd love to come back on sometime. So yeah, we'll work that out. Lavender, good to see you. Wolfgang, howdy. I gotta check you out. Deus Volt. Yeah, thanks, just some guy. Frog Jupiter for 2 says, what do you think of Italian elite theory? I'm not familiar with that specific one. Do you?
Can I speak here? Because
yeah.
I've actually recently read about this, and honestly, it really makes a lot of sense. Like, it really makes a lot of sense. So, like, basically, the Italian elite theory is basically this theory that everything in human history is done through the actions of elites rather than some, like, for example, it doesn't believe that, grassroots populist movements exist. It is all elites doing these decisions. Like, everything is driven by the elites and counter elites, because let's be honest, in every political system there's a clear pattern that's easy for anyone to see. In all types of societies, whether they're just starting to develop or are highly advanced, there are always two main groups of people: those who rule and those who are ruled. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
In simple terms, a small, organized group with a common goal can easily control a large, disorganized group. When a group works together, they are much stronger than individuals who are not united. For example, a group of 100 people working together will beat 1,000 people who are not working together, because it's easier for a smaller group to stay organized and understand each other. Therefore, in larger societies, the governing group is relatively smaller compared to the majority being governed, making it harder for the majority to come together and oppose the minority. And, with the rise of liberal democracy, the illusion is given that this system has been broken, that now the majority is the one who controls those who are at the top. Because in all types of government, when even those that seem democratic, a small organized group will always control a large disorganized group. This is true in these representative systems where it looks like the voters choose their leaders. However, saying that voters, quote unquote, choose their representatives isn't entirely accurate.
Right.
Because it's more like the representatives or their supporters manage to get themselves elected. This might sound
whether it be a representative or direct democracy, that's true, yes.
This might sound a bit blunt, but it captures the essence of basically what happens. In elections, like in all areas of social life, those with the determination and the resources, whether it's morally, intellectually, and materially, to manage to impose their will, and they, tend to take charge and direct others. And then we, have these modern populists of all forms. They believe that the elites should be dethroned and power given to the people. Most notably, like, for example, Donald Trump and his MAGA movement, advocating for the destruction of the deep state and such. But the truth is, even if the previous elites are toppled, it will only result in the creation of new ones who will then again rule over the majority. Even when it comes to populist revolutions like communism, it will just be a communist elite ruling over the nation. Revolutions only occur when the current ruling class loses its ability and resolve to maintain power, which will produce widespread popular discontent, and then a counter-elite is ready to seize the initiative to fill the vacuum, rebellions happen, and revolutions are made. Because, look at Trump. Despite all the populist movements, Trump is a billionaire. He is an elite.
Yes.
He is the one who leads this. He is, at the end of the day, an elite. And,
he's an elite, but he's not in on the circle. He's not part of the elite class in that sense.
Here's the thing. Neither the rise of the Bolsheviks nor the rise of the Nazis was a quote-unquote popular uprising, but rather the result of the determined, organized efforts of counter-elites. Likewise, the movement of, civil rights, LGBT rights, Black Lives Matter, and so forth, were not popular uprisings either, but the result of the determined organized efforts of the elites currently in power. Those who wish to bring about political change cannot hope to do so if they adopt populist methods or have faith that at some point a mass of the public will suddenly reach a tipping point after which elites will be, inevitably toppled. Change always takes close organization and cannot hope to be achieved simply by convincing the greatest number of people of your point of view.
Absolutely.
That's why our focus should not be to dismantle the elite, but rather replace them.
Right.
In essence, that is basically the Italian elite theory.
Thank you. That was a fantastic explanation, because, yeah, I wasn't familiar, but that makes complete sense to me. I mean, obviously. And that's such a good point, too, is that, yes, it is rousing the masses. Is nowhere near as influential and powerful as gaining control over the elites or replacing the elites. Because ultimately, people are easily swayed, people easily change their minds, so this is just all basic human psychology. That absolutely makes sense. So yeah, thank you for explaining that.
That is why in the Italian elite theory, at least for Gaetano Mosca, who is actually the pioneer of the Italian elite theory, I've actually been reading his work. I actually really advise you to read his work, Satan, because already I think you love Gaetano Mosca.
Wait to spell that for me in the chat.
Okay, I'll just write it to you. I'll write it to you later in DMs.
Yeah.
But basically, Mosca argues again that democracy is an illusion.
Of
like
course.
the elites are still the ones in control, but like the difference between a dictatorship and a democracy is that the democracy gives you the illusion that you are in power.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Look into the Italian elite theory, Aiden. I think you will love it.
I will, because that sounds fascinating. I mean, that sounds like a lot of things that I've come to under my own sort of conclusions from reading other authors. But yeah, I will look into that. Kiss it for £5 says, guys, the only time a Marxist actually practices what he preaches is when they're 6 feet under. They own nothing when they are no longer living. Damn, Kizza. In Minecraft, of course. Excuse me, in Roblox. Joey Jojo for 5 says, Happy Easter. Hope everyone is having a good holiday. Christ is King. Thank you, Joey Jojo. Kizza, who's been a member for 14 months, says, I object the king requests to join the panel. Oh, we did do that to that one, yeah. I read these. And then the couple that I missed were... Let's see. Yes. These couple ones. Just this one, which was Michael Latornio for 5 Canadian says, Happy Easter. He is risen. Thank you. Yes, he has. Zim the Despot for 5 says, leftists used to be skeptical of government until they were in charge. We got that one. And then Zim the Despot for another 5 says, I quote something the Almighty Lolly said on a live stream when he described his own political beliefs. The wrong side won the war. The question is which war? Ooh, a little spicy. And Deadpool Kid for 10 says, deep states won't ever go away. Like sin and vice, the egregore of the state will always be in human consciousness. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, as I said, like the only thing we can do is replace the elites. Because here's the thing: grassroots populist movements, they don't exist. Like they will never happen. Like everything for the people and such down with elite. Yeah, never. Yeah, like this is basically what is called like the populist delusion.
Yes, exactly. Yep, the populist delusion. I agree with you 100%. You have to replace them. You can't just vote them out and expect that to maintain its potency. No, you gotta replace them. Afuera. I wish that worked too, but it doesn't. Anywho, let's get back to this. Thank you for pausing for the super chats for me, guys.
The ultimate conclusion here is that there is no genuinely independent and isolated action, thought, idea, or creativity. We all draw inspiration, knowledge, and ideas from those that preceded us, and we merely interpret the millions of inputs of those that have come before us. We rearrange their discoveries, separate the wheat from the chaff, and apply them to our current material conditions. Individuals are not mystical sources of innovative brilliance, but rather absorbers, interpreters, and personifications of accumulated collective wisdom. So why is
yes, of course, the individuals are not
the genius, the great...
But this thing about a collective wisdom doesn't mean... Has he really never heard of the madness of crowds? No, there's some theories, so there's some evidence, right, that, like, let's say you have a mathematical problem and you throw it on the internet. We found some pretty good results on this. Scholars can't figure it out. Some computer some equation that no one can figure out. You throw it onto the internet and crowdsource it essentially, and eventually, if people are interested, enough people together are pretty good at being able to figure stuff out pretty quickly. That's like why that He Will Not Divide Us stuff. Do you remember that when Shia LaBeouf went and put his little flag up all over the place, and all of the weaponized autism of the people over at 4chan triangulated the freaking chemtrails, or not the chemtrails, what are they called? The trails that come off of the end of planes to triangulate where his stupid flag was? That's weaponized autism. That is the intelligence of crowds. But at the same time, crowds are really, really stupid and really bad and very much prone towards groupthink. The intelligence of past of people who've come before us is not the intelligence of crowds. That's the intelligence of other great thinkers being synthesized by current great thinkers. It is not the intelligence or superiority of the mass, right? At all.
Great men and heroes so piously. Why is it that we ignore the contributions and efforts of the general intellect, of the millions of workers and peasants, or forgotten and discarded thinkers and scientists of the Third World, whose efforts and achievements have been stolen and appropriated?
What do you want? Excuse me, first of all, like what? Like what? Secondly, name me some. Was it gonna be is he gonna go down that route? You want to talk to me about how, like, actually black people invented everything or something?
Like, here's the thing, if you want to remember, like, all these soldiers who have fought in World War II, you have the fucking National Archives, all the names are there, just publish them.
We have a memorial day for them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, so his issue is just that we don't spend enough time on these people? I mean, but what's the point? What's the actual fucking point? You just want to, you want to just, go into high schools and force people to learn about these individuals? Okay, they're just gonna be another name that the vast majority of people will forget in 5 seconds. You know, I mean, for their individual contributions. It's only the people who get remembered throughout history are the people who have done the most. And yes, they didn't go in and fight the wars on their own by themselves, but they were generals, they were leaders, they were politicians who, I mean, I'm talking about, like, great politicians, strategists, people who organize this stuff.
There are no battles.
Right.
And without battles, there are no soldiers and no deaths.
Exactly.
But without whom none of this would be possible. Why are we stuck in this rigid dogma of hyper-individualism? The answer lies in a place very familiar
oh my God,
to anyone
okay.
who's ever seriously grappled with the deficiencies of our existing societal order, and should therefore
we can't,
surprising
it's just this is ridiculous. You just can't
Individualism?
can't recognize individual accomplishments. It's always the people who did it. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's all just capitalism, right? Okay,
yeah,
where we are.
I mean, in one way, he complains about the mystique of individualism, while at the same time he mystifies the collective. You know, it's quite an interesting paradox that he keeps repeating over and over again non-stop, without realizing.
The mystique, however he gets it, I guess, right? Huh, interesting. But can't really explain it very well. Interesting.
Is an ideological tool for the reinforcement and reproduction of the right on private property over the means of production.
An intellectual tool?
It grants individuals and their supposed brilliance the
I never understand how these people have this insane idea of capitalism as being anything more than a system of economics. It really is like their Beelzebub, their Antichrist, their Satan. Every single thing that is ever wrong in society is because of this economic system. And it's not just an economic system, it's a theology. I don't know anybody who looks at capitalism like this, except for commies. It's bizarre.
Justification for holding productive forces of society in their own private hands. Plainly put, it explains away the injustices and exploitation of the many by the few, by the virtue of their supposed individual industriousness and brilliance, which supposedly justifies their place at the top of the pyramid.
Well, yeah, in terms of capitalism, if you are investing capital, you better make a wise decision or else you're broke. I mean, if you make bad decisions...
go further and say something else.
Sure.
You know most of the paintings on the Louvre? You know who commissioned them?
Well, all throughout history, all the greatest works of art throughout history were commissioned. Look at the Renaissance. It was all a bunch of rich people commissioning these works. They wouldn't exist if they weren't paid to do it.
Actually, you can go as far as to say it was because they were being patronized, you know?
Yes,
they were
literally.
giving the support, you know, like... But Da Vinci, for example, is the best example. You know, basically the I think it was Venice. I'm not sure if it was Venice or Florence. Doesn't matter for the context. Anyway,
Venice,
you know,
I think, but I don't remember.
Yeah, well, let's go with Venice. You know, I might be wrong, but let's just go with Venice for this example. You know, if the Venetian Doge didn't went up to him and say, "Here's a pile of money. Do whatever you want. Just I don't care. Just do whatever you want."
And by the way,
they've invented stuff.
That was the agreement. There was that they weren't commissioning him. Sometimes there were commissions for specific paintings of specific people or of specific scenes from the Bible or something like that. But for the most part, a lot of that was particularly with very famed and renowned artists like Da Vinci. They just paid him to do whatever the hell he was going to do. I mean, that's why do you think the website's called Patreon? Because it comes out of this exact kind of mindset. Is I'm going to give you money to patronage to make stuff that I can enjoy. I'm not telling you necessarily exactly what to do. I might have some ideas for you. There might be some things that I could commission you for sure. That still exists in art and always has. But a lot of this was just, I'm just going to pay you to be a genius. So, I mean, like, there it is. Oh, there we go. Hang on.
The prospect of the general intellect that we've previously described,
which is ridiculous,
the only intellectually honest way of analyzing societal
nope.
innovation and historical development.
No, actually, it's completely antithetical to the study of human psychology, particularly group psychology. Study group psychology, my dude, before you say stuff like this. Just saying. I don't know. Get a book like really Tajfel Turner, 1971. Read that study. I guess that's like a good intro to group psych.
Developments is discarded
Tajfel Turner, Hog and Oaks
in favor of a rigid, static, dull-witted dogma of quote-unquote great men who single-handedly shape history through singular events of great importance. The fluid, dynamic general intellect is thus painted as the boogeyman, as the notorious hive mind that consumes and destroys all sense of individualism and personality, that values the collective at the expense of the individual, which is, funnily enough, for many a default presumption about communism.
Do you have any idea how group psychology works? Clearly not. I know I'm repeating myself. A very basic function of group psychology is that because you are subsumed into the group, this is Tajfel and Turner, but this is not just Tajfel and Turner, this is Zimbardo, this is a massive theory. But Tajfel and Turner is going to be what you're going to look for as your seminal here. When you are subsumed into the group, you lose individual identity. This is a basic function of human group psychology. When you lose individual identity, you become de-individuated, which creates desensitization towards social norms. It can make you act more aggressively, anti-normatively, in order against whoever you think the anti-group is, whatever that may be. This is how you get the violence and the madness of crowds, because when individual identity is subsumed into the group identity, people think as a collective, not as an individual. This is not made up. This is not some fantasy that capitalists believe. This is basic human social science. Fucking, I hate to say this again, but I don't know, read some research on this. It is the most basic seminal work on group psychology. Tajfel and Turner, Hog and Oaks. Those are the names you need for it.
In essence, some fear this alternative, scientific method of observing history purely because of their ideological drive to conserve the status quo,
scientific,
to maintain their right to private property,
right, yes,
self-righteous drive to stand above others.
And also, not to mention, like, if this is the case, then why in the case of communism we only remember like the communist dictators, why literally no one else?
That's a good question.
No. Better yet. Marxism. Where does that come from?
Where could that name derive from?
No, like every single communist regime, what do? They interpret Marx's ideal.
Marxist.
It's
Marxism,
always about
Leninism.
Marx.
Yes. Lysenkoism, all these ideas, whatever they are named after the people who pioneered them. Duh.
Like, would he apply this logic and say communism, like the very foundations of communism, wouldn't exist without Marx? You could at least make the argument Marx came up with the theory and the people did the praxis. But you wouldn't have the praxis without the theory, which is itself Marx and Engels.
And here's the thing.
Oh, no, wait. Don't worry. I'm pretty sure workers on a factory will have a lot of time to write an essay on the financial and capitalistic nature of the regime. Definitely.
Yeah, plenty of time while working in the creosote mines. But here's the thing. But even that, let's look at what Marx and Engels. Where did they get their ideas from? Hegel. Even they are taking and expounding upon ideas. That's how human intellect works. It's some great thinkers, well, depending on how you think about them, but somebody comes up with an idea, someone else expounds upon it. That's the academic that's the academic method, always has been. Someone comes up with an idea, someone else expands upon it or tears it apart. Marx and Engels didn't come up with this shit, they took it from Hegel.
Yeah, because tell me with a straight face that some random fucking chicken farmer in Nebraska can come up with the same stuff Marx did.
I mean, probably.
But it's also important to remember that Marx had a patron, it was Engels, Marx didn't really have to, fight to survive, Engels basically, was the one paying the bills, and Marx had, because he didn't have to, it's like Da Vinci, he didn't have to spend time, caring about survival, so he had enough time to dedicate himself to other pursuits, It always goes back to, to this idea, that we talked previously.
To dominate and exploit them. Their omnipresent dogma atomizes individuals and promises us that we are all special, that we all must fend for ourselves, clean our own room first, and not worry about wider societal problems.
Yes.
Those are supposedly handled by individuals wiser than ourselves.
Yes. And that's a good thing. The average person has average person stuff to deal with. They do have to clean their room. They do have to take care of their families. This is the whole purpose. This is the benefit of a monarchy, for example, as we often talk about. Is that then it's just their job to deal with this shit so that the average person doesn't have to think about it. They don't have to worry themselves with these things that they don't have the time, usually the intellectual capacity, and certainly not the training to be able to understand, let alone to be able to make decisions about. This is that kind of organization, the hierarchical organization that comes under a monarchical system, is better for everyone involved so that you don't have to put these incredible pressures onto people who just want to live their lives. Don't want to have to think about Marxist theory. First of all, because it sucks and it's lame, but also because it's just they don't have the time, they don't have the energy. This is so, you do, dude, you do, because you're a YouTuber, but most people don't.
By the way, even Lenin, even the early Soviet, the first communist state, Lenin was the one who introduced, vanguard party rule. I think you all know what that is.
Yep.
Yeah, that literally goes against everything Balkan Odyssey is saying here. The very thought of vanguard party rule is in opposition to what he is saying here.
Right. Is he's under I don't know if it's a delusion or a lie that he's acting like it's every single person, every single part of the proletariat. No. No, that's not how that worked. That's not how it's ever worked. It's not how it was ever supposed to work. Because immediately it is, of course, the vanguard that gets put in part. That is the vanguard, the ones in front. Duh. I mean, Jesus Christ. This is very silly. Very silly.
Just want to say, gentlemen, we are halfway through this video. I hope you are all enjoying.
Yeah, well...
There's a lot more to come.
At first I didn't know what the fuck he was waffling on about. I was confused, but okay. Yeah, now it's gotten infuriating.
They are well aware that a different retrospective on human history, on our progress and achievements, a collectivist and internationalist one, threatens the hegemony of capitalism as the dominant socio-economic system, and simultaneously their private interests.
I want to say capitalism is international.
Yes.
Where is money, there's a capitalist. Capitalists don't care about war, they care about money. If they want to go to the Philippines to make money, they will go to the Philippines to make money. They don't care about borders, they care about the money.
Precisely.
There is a reason why globalism and free trade is a basic principle of any, capitalist guy.
Yeah. But I mean, it just makes sense.
But here's the thing. Capitalists will always go where there is money to be made, where there is profit to be made.
Simple as.
If free trade is more profitable, they will support free trade. If protectionism is more profitable, they will, participate in protectionism.
Yep,
If selling drugs to Africans is profitable as well.
For example, if nationalism is profitable, they will support it. If internationalism is profitable, it supports that. I mean, this is basic thing. These are very basic things. Capitalists aren't always nationalists.
Exactly. But again, like I said earlier, people like this seem to ascribe a kind of theism to capitalism, as if it has like these precepts of beliefs, when it's no. Capitalism, I mean, it does have a precept of belief, which is make profit. That's it. And so again, like there's no political ideology associated inherently with capitalism. You can have a capitalist system of pretty much any bent. I mean, for fuck's sake, China is a communist capitalist system, right? But I mean, sort of. But if you wanted to stretch
China
the
is
definitions,
China. Let's say it like that.
Sure, you could maybe stretch the definition. But I mean, they engage in capitalist functions. So
I would say. I think what China is practicing is like called Dengism.
Yeah, right.
It's essentially a hybrid regime, you know.
It's basically some form of market socialism.
Sure. Yeah, it's a hybridistic system. But again, capitalism is just trade at the end of the day. And so yeah, again, capitalism, as you said it very well. Capitalism will forces of capitalism, I think we should say, because when you personify something like capitalism as he's doing, that muddies the waters on it, because he's humanizing it. He's giving it a personality, like it's a person or a thing.
Well, I would argue he's dehumanizing it, but
yes, he's dehumanizing it. But what I mean by that is that he's giving it agency, as if this thing that is just market forces that move towards whatever is most beneficial to the market don't move with any kind of moral intent. It just is. He's applying morals, and therefore, the correct term is anthropomorphizing capitalism, and that's just ridiculous. I mean, like, I guess you could make the same argument for communism, but communism does involve the people, and therefore does involve a certain aspect of anthropomorphization that you don't get in capitalism, which is unthinking, uncaring, and just existing market fluctuations. Anywho, let's go back.
Realize that just like history was steered and decorated by our shared collaborative efforts, the future is equally so in our collective hands, and not in the hands of a handful of supposedly great men. It would return agency to the laboring people of the earth, and give them hope that they have a common cause that they can pursue in a collaborative, organized manner. As you can see, that would be highly inconvenient. And some, on the other hand, dismiss this kind of nuanced approach due to pure egotism and obsession with the prospect of one day themselves crystallizing as one such great genius or successful businessman. Their hope of one day profiting from the status quo with narcissistic belief in their own self-righteous independence.
Whoa, this is a lot of mind reading. First of all, yeah, most people, I think, not everyone aims to be great. But I think that there's very few people who wouldn't want to be great and rich and successful. That's kind of normal. I don't know why he's denigrating this as inherently narcissistic. Wanting to be successful is not narcissistic, inherent. I mean, it could be, but not inherent.
Makes them politically passive and impotent. It makes them the bootlickers of the current political establishment. Nonetheless, this entire theory and philosophical misunderstanding of societal dynamics is just a symptom of something deeper. Namely, it draws its roots from the 19th century philosophy of idealism, whose well-established foundations commit innumerable sins and fallacies that no person who fancies themselves as an enthusiast of social sciences, or let alone an intellectual, can possibly ignore.
Okay.
I mean,
the only reason why...
I just want to say, a 12-year-old, 16-year-old, let's be fair, on his mom's basement making YouTube videos is the least qualified person to, comment on any philosophical movement, in my opinion, let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure where he's going to come at idealism here, because I have my obvious critiques with idealism, but So I'm not sure. Look, people start throwing out the word social science. You know, it triggers me.
I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I would say all of us are, at the end of the day, even if it's not fully, we are kind of idealistic. Like,
That's
for
true.
example,
That's true.
when, I mean, for example, if we talk about political ideologies, it does take some amount of idealism to say,
I mean,
my system works, is best for humanity, and yours will not work. It does
I mean,
take some kind of idealism to, say that.
I mean, ideology by definition is idealistic. You are idealizing something, a principle, because you believe that's the better, compared to others.
Yeah, that's true. And the reason I came to the monarchy conclusion was I looked at the variables that I'd assessed and said, well, this one appears to be the one that's best at protecting liberty and best at protecting people and best at protecting society and its structures so that it doesn't degenerate into abject oligarchical hell, such as we see in much of the West now. But it's not to say that idealism, I think, comes with an air of, and this is more the, not the direct meaning, but the implication is that it's farcical. But I think that you have to be a little bit idealistic, otherwise you just become a nihilist. Maybe he's just a nihilist.
That's why, for example, I've seen some people like, I've actually seen this more, since you're a libertarian, Aiden. I think you know that the word utopian gets thrown around a lot in those circles.
Oh, yeah.
And that is too idealistic. Oh, that is too utopian. Like, look, I am just as idealistic about my belief as you. Like, what makes, if you think that libertarianism is inherently better than any other system, then by definition, you are also kind of utopian. If you think your system will be best for humanity and improve everyone's lives, then you are also to some extent utopian. Like, for example, look at best example is anarcho-capitalists. These people are so sure and stubborn that their system will work completely without flaw, despite the fact that anarcho-capitalism has historically never even been tried.
Well, Catalonia for like like a day.
Well,
no, we can't. I'm shitposting a little.
I mean, you get the point I'm trying to make.
Well, I actually think it's an important point too, which is that if you don't believe in it, what the fuck are you doing advocating for it? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, like literally, why are you then accusing others of being utopian or idealistic if you are also inherently, to some extent, utopian idealistic if you believe in a system that is inherently better than mine? Like, if you think your system is inherently better than mine, then guess what? You are also utopian and idealistic.
Yep. Unless you're saying that you think your system is shit, and you're advocating it for some other reason, for personal gain or something. I mean, otherwise, yeah. Again, I think you're completely correct. If you are advocating for a system because you genuinely think that it's better for people, for society, that's idealistic. I mean, there's not much stuff that's more idealistic than believing communism can work, for fuck's sake. They're even more idealistic than the ANCAPs. Good God.
This kind of erroneous philosophy is tolerated or encouraged is because, as we have already briefly mentioned, it is very useful for the agents of the status quo in more ways than one. Idealism is by all metrics an outdated philosophy, whose shortcomings and inadequacies have been exposed and refuted countless times for almost 200 years by the likes of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, and hundreds of
but again, how are you not idealistic?
In their footsteps.
Okay,
Yet
we just went over
it's
this.
still entrenched in our collective subconscious as the dominant interpreter of history and modernity. It still prevails as the default mode of thought. So, what are these tragic shortcomings that I keep insisting upon? Well, among other things, idealism represents history as a series of isolated events and phenomena, of carefully defined and labeled piecemeal episodes in strict chronological order. It categorizes these events and phenomena with rigid, static definitions. For example, history is taught in schools as a series of dates you ought to remember, saturated with highly influential singular events, initiated by a set of important individuals that fully define rigidly defined epochs. The result is a mediocre movie script of linear and one-dimensional storytelling, which
Wait a minute,
transforms history from a social science into a grocery list. The best case
hang on one
into
second.
cheap.
Yeah, history is linear, my dude. Yeah. In terms of it being a grocery list and that it's...
Someone pause?
Yeah, I paused it. Oh shit, sorry, I just realized I was muted. Okay, he said that his... Okay, my first point is... Sorry, I was muted on one thing and on the other. Yes, history is linear, my dude. History is linear. I can't believe he said that. That, oh, well, history is perceived as a linear thing. Yes, it is. It's linear. It's time, by definition. Two, yes, it can be kind of grocery list in terms of what the vast majority of people have as an understanding broadly of history, but that's why people go into very specific areas and spend their entire lives understanding just one tiny aspect of one of these cultures. This is not something, again, that you can expect the average person to clock.
And not to mention that everything you learn in history is literally a story. It is by definition a story. It's in the fucking name. Story.
Yes. You are learning the story of something that happened in the past because you cannot... It's not a scientific experiment, right? I can't go into a lab and reproduce this. We have to know it from the stories that people in the past have given to us. I can't recreate it. Can't run a laboratory experiment on this. It's inherently a story. Very dumb. Very dumb.
Entertainment.
One more time. I'll press it. Okay.
Entertainment. These stiff definitions and piecemeal categorizations of events oversimplify historical processes to the point of absurdity. They ignore the fluid and dynamic nature of historical development and focus merely on the episodic highlights of history that give us zero insight into the logic of its perpetual...
That's the job of historians, not of very specialized historians, yes. Not of average people to understand. It would be impossible. You have to take your entire life to study that shit if you want to understand the incredible minutia of that. And dude, this is so pointless.
Transformation. The result of this is a historical vacuum with isolated bubbles floating around.
No, this is because you're a pleb, dude.
I mean, if I may say something. If you want to learn history, you have to go to an historian and talk with him, you know? If you like history and you want to learn history, you don't do that in school as in high school, primary school. What you do there is general knowledge.
Yes.
It's, just, you have an idea of things. You are not, so that you're not completely ignorant. Because that's not the issue. A person teaching you that in high school is not an historian.
Yeah.
It's just a teacher that's reading off the book.
Yep.
Right? That's not teaching. That's just giving you a lecture. That's very different things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If you want to learn... I mean, what he's asking... Absurd oversimplification. People have only so much space in their brains unless they are a historian. And even then, if you're a historian, you're going to be a historian in a very usually specific subsection that you devote your life to. This idea that everyone should be an expert on everything or should be, this is what should be expected of people. No. The oversimplification is on purpose. It's a necessity of the human mind. Everyone can't know this stuff. So stupid. Batman for 20 says, Marxists are like the anti-life equation is in DC Comics. To people who think it's complicated, deep, can't complete, wrap their mind around it because they become mindless zealots for it, become it complicated to them to be correct. I get what you're talking about, Batman, that the anti-life equation, you think about it too much. And yeah, that's what it gets you. But it's not actually that complicated. I mean, it is complicated, but that's why you have individual scholars who spend their entire lives studying this stuff. Not everybody can do that, or should.
Disconnected and independent of one another, or of the greater context. The perceived cause and effect is strictly linear and one-dimensional. Complex historical processes are perceived as expressions of personal squabbles and clashes between individual leaders and aristocrats.
Lavender, do you know that meme about European history be like versus the Chinese history be like?
Yeah.
I mean, for most of European history, we are talking about dukes fighting over who's the rightful king of England.
Yeah.
If that's not a personal squabble, I don't know what
exactly.
What is.
Yeah. Yep.
occurring episodically and randomly, with the spectacle and intrigue of bourgeois and aristocratic politics as the centerpiece of this historical theater. Wars and international conflicts are not seen as symptoms of intricate socioeconomic mechanisms and social dynamics, but as the will of political leaders who have the ability to press a button and send everyone to smithereens if they so desire. Geopolitical conflicts are
I want to, have any of you ever read Clausewitz?
No.
Read what?
Okay. Clausewitz, you know the Prussian general?
No.
No.
Okay, he says one sentence, which was very emblematic. Basically, it is that politics is the war is the continuation of politics. You know, I'm sorry, but this guy's so absolutely fucking retarded. It's actually hard to make sense what he says. No one says that the war starts because of a guy, presses a button. Never. No historian. I mean, okay, you have the medieval ages, but that's about it. All the time, even medieval ages. I'm sorry, let me correct that, because medieval ages, dynastic agreements and everything, that was the politics of the time. What we see today as politics today is very different from the politics of the medieval ages. And the politics of the medieval ages were very different from the politics of the classical era. Personal squabbles, that's part of politics. We cannot just
You can't separate the personal from the political.
Look at social factors and ignore everything else.
Yes.
The social and economical factors are part of the politics for sure, but so is personal relationships.
Yes.
So is the character of the person in charge of the country. For example, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world came very close to World War III. Why? Because one man did not give an okay to launch nuclear weapons. If you did not have that individual there, if you had, for example, someone with completely different values, completely different background, do you think it would have been the same decision? Or, it's so redundant and so absolutely retarded to make this argument remove complete individuality and completely remove the personality of the individual from history as a whole.
Yeah, it's funny. He's anthropomorphizing capitalism while dehumanizing politicians. You can't remove, or you cannot remove the personal from the political. At some point, things do become personal. They always do. They always have, and they always will. I mean, that's the reality of things. You can't totally divest yourself of emotions, even if you're a very well-trained leader who understands statecraft. At some point, things get under your skin. Things get personal.
Look at Napoleon.
Yes. You also
why
talk about family histories throughout history, throughout the course of human history, like family rivalries, feuds that they can go back hundreds of years.
Italy. Look at Venice, Florence. The Medicis. We are talking about centuries and centuries of politics that were based on marriage, on blood relations. So redundant. I mean, it's absolutely ignorant to just ignore this context completely.
At the end of the day, politics is just a war without bloodshed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's I was rereading. I reread Johann Huizinga's. I reread it. I read that book 10 years ago, and I thought it was like, ooh, this book is so good. Johann Huizinga's book Homo Ludens, which is Man the Player. When I was originally studying game scholarship when I was in grad and doc school, so this book's great. I reread it and I was like, ooh, he's got some arguments I don't like. When he starts talking about politics, I was like, ooh, he is real white-pilled, which is kind of nice that he's so white-pilled. He's writing the book in 1936, I think, or 38, so like right before World War II. So he's out of World War I, and he's very optimistic. He's in the Netherlands, looking at things real positively, I think, at the time, and had a different perspective at that point. But one of the things that he talks about when he talks about politics is he says that politics is play. It's one of Huizinga says that everything pretty much is play, but anything that a whole lot of what humans do is play, and politics is very clearly a game. It is. What's the difference between politics and chess in that way? You have the consecrated spot. So in chess, it's the chessboard, and then in politics, it's the Senate, it's the Congress, it's the podium. This is the consecrated spot on which politics happens. Then you have all the rules of engagement. They have to be followed. If you break the rules, you're out. Right? Politics is all play. It's just a game. It's a game with a lot of stakes, but it's a game nonetheless. I think Huizinga's correct about that.
And unlike a lot of people think, it's a game in which you really, really need to put your brain to work in order to even get the idea of winning.
Exactly. I think he's right about that. Yep.
Master plans of individual leaders with a thirst for power. War crimes as spontaneous outbursts of hatred and resentment. And political alliances as expressions of the friendly attitude of leading personalities. So why do we then limit ourselves to this kind of shallow approach? Why is idealism so pervasive despite its countless malignancies? Just like it was the case with the great man theory, the answer here is equally straightforward. Idealism is the defining philosophy of the unchanging, established status quo.
What are you espousing then? What are you advocating for? If not your own form of idealism. And how is it the Look, okay, we talked through this, and we all agree that we're all idealists. You have to be to some idea, or to some degree, in order to advocate for anything. Otherwise, you're just blackpilled and go roll over and engage in your learned helplessness and die, right? If you don't have any sense of idealism. So, if we're all idealists, the three of us here, towards a monarchical system, is that the status quo? This is a very bizarre definition. Very bizarre. It appears to be that it's only idealism when it's things he doesn't like. Right? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I mean, you know how they are.
Yep, typical.
Of the social and political forces that are devoted to preserving their hegemony by all means necessary. A philosophy that represents history as something static, theatrical, and episodic is very convenient for those who wish to represent
How else
their
do you explain
rule
it?
as omnipresent and all-encompassing.
How else do you explain history other than through episodes? What the fuck? Like, does this guy want... How do you like translate the entirety of human historical knowledge into someone's brain via like an uplink? Otherwise, how else do you explain it to people in a digestible way? It's ridiculous.
While painting potential social change and progress as something impossible, idealistic, and dangerous. Once you've skewed the dimension of time and torn apart the...
Well, that's not true. Look at it. Look at America, right? Let's look at the United States. In terms of upturning the past, I mean, that's America's entire identity, is that no, we overthrew the shackles of the terrible monarchy, and now we're better. So I don't understand what you're saying. I don't get it. Absolutely, these can be part of people's cultural, historical mythos. It doesn't make any sense.
Equation into thousands of atomized pieces, it becomes utterly impossible to perceive any motion or dynamic in the flow of history. Everything melts together. The socioeconomic arrangements of today begin to subconsciously seep into our retroactive investigation of history, so that by virtue of merely observing history from today's lens, we apply our superstitions and assumptions of contemporary politics onto that historical moment.
Oh, sure. You want to talk about how the fact that people in serf systems in medieval Europe under monarchs worked about a half of the days of the year that they currently work? Would you want to look at it from that perspective? I'm not saying that's a good thing, by the way. I mean, it's obviously an agrarian society. It's a different situation. But we're talking about the fact that people were taxed at an extremely minimal rate under monarchical systems comparatively to today. Wouldn't want to talk about that. Of course, you're in favor of big taxes, way, everything taxed, I'm sure. But, yes, you could turn things into a big history blob without looking at them with the relative context, but I don't think he would like those kinds of bits of information. Right? Just a guess.
Dismissing all relevant historical context. And what is the result of this? Well, we begin to treat our current socioeconomic order as something eternal and omnipresent, as an expression of human nature that has always been with us and is part of who we are. As Mark Fisher puts it, the power of capitalist realism derives in part from the way that capitalism subsumes and consumes all of previous history. In other words, capitalism represents itself as the end-all be-all solution to human organization. It distorts and buries all alternative forms of...
It's just an economic system that's based on barter and trade. The only thing is that we exchange, instead of just direct trade, for fiat, or preferably some kind of non-fiat currency in my preferred system. But that's still capitalism, dude. This guy, like, he really sees capitalism as some kind of like satanic religion or something. It's very bizarre.
That's literally all Marxists see. They only see one enemy, and that is capitalism. That is literally all they see. Anything that doesn't conform to their beliefs, anything that isn't also socialist or revolutionary, it's just part of the capitalist tentacle that needs to be wiped out. That's literally how they see everything around, because keep in mind, Aiden, Marxism isn't just an idea of how to run a society.
Right.
It gives you an entire worldview, how you should view the world. And that
Exactly.
is what's dangerous about communism.
But that's probably why he sees, and why they see capitalism that way, is because that's how Marxism is. Marxism isn't just an economic theory, it's an entire worldview. So people like this must also suppose that capitalism is also this entire worldview that we're all sitting around worshiping, I suppose.
And that is why they say, oh, when we do it, it's okay,
right?
Because everything the other side does, the capitalists, it is bad, but everything we do, the heroic socialists who are trying to defeat them, is good. That is literally what they believe.
Yes.
This is why, for example, when it comes to fascism, many Marxist thinkers had literally had their brains 404 because they needed to explain how fascism came into being, because their worldview denies the notion that they can have a rival revolutionary force that also wants to destroy the status quo in favor of something else other than radical socialism, which in fascism's case is radical nationalism.
Yes.
So they had to figure out how they can push fascism into their dialectic. So they came up with the theory, fascism is just capitalism in decay. There is nothing about it. It's a literal cult.
Yes, it is. I mean, and it's crazy when you see someone just, again, display it like this. Just with the other guy. Just see him just throw it all out there.
Organization from the past, and creates the impression that this is how things have always been.
Well, yeah, it kind of has been.
That humans have always been inherently greedy, profit-seeking, and ruthless by nature.
Yeah, it's called self-preservation. It's evolutionary theory. You might want to look into it.
And that, therefore, this is how things will always have to be.
Yep.
By rendering the evolution of human social and economic...
I'm so happy he used the word evolution right after I did. In complete ignorance, after just describing human evolutionary theory as to why people are self-invested. You know, dude, for like the propagation of your genes to make sure that your children, first of all, exist and then can thrive. Yeah, that's why people care about prospering. Yeah, that's why. Evolution. There it is. There you go. You got it. You got it.
Organization is something motionless,
Balkan Odyssey, good for you.
Or linear and one-dimensional at best. By presenting history as it does today, capitalist business represents itself as something ontological and inherent to the very nature of humankind.
Yep.
As we have supposedly reached the end of history, and there is no alternative. The ultimate result of all of this is that, as Frederick Jameson famously said, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. This kind of apathy conjures the impression that action is pointless. Only senseless hope makes sense.
No, because people are still going to engage in what you would consider capitalism, even when you institute a oppressive communist system that does everything possible to try and prevent people from doing it. They always will, because trade is natural. People will trade each other for things. Duh. Like, dude, it's again because he doesn't understand what capitalism is. It's just a bogeyman to him.
Superstition and religion, the first
Funny,
resorts of
ironic,
the hopeless, proliferate. We can see how this kind of frozen out.
And this is why a lot of people say that communism is a religion.
Clearly. Really?
That it basically acts like a religion because it gives you a worldview and inherently says all other. Okay, but you get what I mean. Like, it's basically a religion. Like, I wouldn't exactly say it's exactly like a religion, but it definitely has those features. Like, again, it doesn't just say how you should run a country and society. It also says how you should view the world around you around you itself. Like, for example, for us, because our worldviews, because our ideologies don't give us a worldview, we can objectively analyze many other ideas and identify them for what they are: individual ideas with different ways and ideas on how to run a society. In the Marxist case, that is completely not true. All of these other ideas are basically part of the same capitalist behemoth. For example, if you show three different ideas, we can obviously identify and say, oh, these are three different ideas. Then we can analyze them one by one and then objectively see, okay, what drives them and what do they believe in. But for Marxists, when they see these three ideas, they basically think of the same thing, capitalism. So they don't even bother to analyze why do these people believe in these things, or they don't even want to engage with the ideology, because they already have reached the final conclusion of it, and it's basically pointless for them.
Right. Yeah, they've already done, well, excuse me, I was gonna say they've done the thinking, but they haven't. They've had the thinking done for them, and then they just regurgitate it. They know what the answer is. They don't need to think. They don't need to, and any information to the contrary is heresy. That's all it is. It is a religion, in that sense. None of us are dogmatically tied to capitalism, because capitalism is not a religion. Capitalism is just a system of economics, just a system of trade.
Outlook on history
Not
also
difficult.
paralyzes our collective imagination for any potential social change, for alternate modes of organization.
Yeah, we already went through this paralyzing creativity. Yeah, go ask the Italian patrons about that.
It breeds political sterility and impotence, and renders us as passive observers of a theatrical play, steered primarily by important men in important moments, us being passive bystanders and observers.
Yeah, because under a non-capitalist system, you'd be able to have different ideas. See North Korea.
But thankfully, there is an alternative to this apathy. One that breathes fresh air.
I hate to bring up North Korea, but it's the obvious go-to. I mean, what system of governance, of which capitalism is not a system of governance, stifles alternative ideas? It's not normally capitalist societies. I mean, some of them can, yes, absolutely. But tends to be the more commie ones that really stifle ideas. Yeah, just saying, historically.
To the discourse about history, and by extension, about prospects for our future. This alternative offers us a historical model that is dynamic, modular, and constantly evolving, whose unceasing development is perceived in all of its complexity, pertaining interconnectedness, interdependence, and causality. The philosophy that gives us the ability of such advanced analysis is namely dialectical materialism, whose core mechanisms I will try to explain in a couple of sentences, but which
try to explain dialectical materialism.
Much more nuanced conversation. I've already talked about the basics of dialectical and historical materialism in my video.
Oh, I hope you actually explain it. Oh, I'm gonna check you on this, my dude. You better explain dialectical materialism correctly, because I'm gonna check you on it. Mm-hmm.
And there are many other amazing videos by, for example, the Marxist Project, that delve much deeper into this huge subject. If you in any way...
I love...
He's gonna fuck this up. There's no way he explains this correctly. Go ahead.
No, I just love that communists need like a 5-hour-long video in 17 parts to explain the fundamental basis of their ideology.
Yeah, it's the foundation. You should be able to explain dialectical materialism in like 2 minutes. Because I think that's about... Hang on, no, I'm gonna hold off because I want to see what he says. He's got 6 minutes left in this video. That's more than enough time to explain dialectical materialism. So let's see. Have at it.
You feel confused or intimidated by the concept, don't worry.
I feel very intimidated.
It does take some time to digest, so take your time and be patient.
Okay.
Nonetheless,
they both did this,
method
didn't they?
Entices us to view social...
Hang on, both of these guys did this, where they're like, oh, yeah, they did this. Like, oh, I understand this is very complicated. This is very difficult for you to understand. This very, what's the right word for it? He's talking down. They talk down to people as if they're coming from a position of intellectual superiority. Yes, it's condescending. Thank you, Bill. I couldn't pull the word. But yeah, it's extremely condescending of, oh, if this is too difficult for you, I understand, because I'm about to use a bunch of big words. No, dialectical materialism is not difficult to understand, just like free market economies are not difficult to understand from a second thought. It's not hard. They intentionally do this. They use phraseology, what I would call jargon, which I used in my videos as well, but when I use jargon, I just explain what academic jargon, I explain what it means. And I have never, ever, in a video that I've ever made, said, this is probably too complicated for you guys to understand, so don't feel stupid, it's alright. No, anyone can understand it. You just need to be able to explain it. If you can't explain it in a way that the average person can understand, then you are failing as a presenter in making videos. That's just the truth. Sorry.
Relations, material phenomena, and by extension the entire universe, as a series of contradictions. The resolvement of these contradictions through a dialectical synthesis of new phenomena results in qualitative and quantitative changes that...
Okay, he's using the jargon. But let's go through. This also isn't Marx, by the way, this is Hegel.
...are the driving force of historical progress. The application of the dialectical method onto history, the topic of this very video, is also known as historical materialism, according to which human history is a series of societal, economic, and political contradictions and clashes, whose ultimate expression comes in the form of class struggle between the possessing and laboring classes. Through this lens, it becomes apparent that the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles.
Yeah, let's break this down into what actually dialectical materialism is. Okay, because he's using words that are intentionally designed to be difficult to understand. Let's make it simple. That's what dialectical materialism is that there is this great divide between the haves and the have-nots, the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, right? And they need that. This divide is what causes all of the struggles, or at least for Marx, it's the economic, the dialectical materialism of Marx is the economic one, right? So in order to resolve this, then the differences between types need to be dissolved, right? This is what Hegel is talking about in his work, is more about a theological issue between he's specifically being Gnostic and saying that that in order for us to ascend through the pleroma and become one with the with God, more or less, is that we have to deconstruct everything. And Marx is coming from the same perspective as Hegel, is that everything needs to be deconstructed. You have to deconstruct everything. That's what the dialectic is deconstruction of everything. For Marx, it's economics. All factors of economics need to be deconstructed so that there are no differences between types. In the theological perspective, it's to deconstruct all things theological until there are no differences between types. From the historical perspective, it's to deconstruct all things historical until there are no differences between types. Until everything is a big orange blob. Welcome to the end of history, end of Evangelion. There you go. Play us out, right? That's it. That's dialectical materialism. It's bullshit. As best as I can explain it succinctly. Do you guys agree with that? I don't know.
I understood like half of it.
Oh.
I'll be honest, this guy, the content, blah, 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 of these guys give me a headache already. It's just going downhill very quickly.
Yeah.
I really think, isn't it funny how he intentionally uses all of these fancy words? They are intentionally, misleading to make people think he knows what he's talking about.
No, he's using the
even
verbiage of
comprehending
Marx.
himself.
He is using the exact verbiage of Marx. They always do this for a reason, because Marx intentionally made it difficult to understand. In fact, if you read his writings, he more or less says this, that he made it difficult for people to understand so that you could do shit like this and pop off and sound like a supreme intellectual while actually saying nothing, while saying what I said, which is that you have to deconstruct everything. If there's any difference between two people economically, right, from we're talking about the Marxist dialectic, any difference in economic status between two people therefore means that there is a problem that needs to be deconstructed. So you have to deconstruct everything in society that could have led to that difference between people economically, and then destroy it and restructure society so that there are no differences. That's the dialectic. And here's the thing about the dialectic, is that it never ends, because there will inherently always be differences between people. So therefore it goes on in perpetuity. That's the the historical dialectic, that's the Hegelian theosophical dialectic, and that's the Marxist economic dialectic. That's how all of them work. It's the same thing. It never stops. It's just constantly relitigating shit for this stupid academic, pseudo-intellectual mind game stuff. And it's pointless and navel-gazing. But that's it. That's the dialectic for everybody. There, you can understand it now. Whenever when someone comes at you and like throws words out like this that sound like they don't make any sense, it's just that you have to deconstruct everything all the time. It never stops. And anytime that you find any differences between any people, you have to go through the dialectic process all over again. That's it. There's the dialectic, explained succinctly, as best I can.
That's really just unnecessarily complicated.
Yes, it is, on purpose. On purpose. So that, and the reason, here's why. Because if at any point Marxism doesn't work, well, it's not because Marxism didn't actually work. Because we have to re-engage the dialectic and do it again. And then this time it will work when we reassess the entire dialectical process, and then we can come to a new conclusion and fix the differences between types. You understand like why it can't fail, right? This is why you hear them chant over and over, well, real Marxism has never been tried. That's because it's built into the Marxist dialectical model. Because anytime that it fails, well, it really wasn't real Marxism, because the dialectic need to be reconducted. Make sense now? Why they truly believe this? There you go. Comes straight out of Hegel, right into Marx and Engels. And it's the same shit every time. They can't be proven wrong because they cannot be proven wrong, because it just needs to be reevaluated through another dialectical analysis. Damn, dude.
Not random events and petty elitist politics that are out of our control. Nonetheless, in complete contrast to the lethargy of liberal idealism, with this method of investigation, we treat phenomena, events, and social forces as something fluid, shape-shifting, and ever-evolving, resistant to enclosure into rigid definitions inside the vacuum of the idealist mind. We thus derive historical definitions from material and social phenomena, instead of forcing bluntly predefined concepts onto the ever-changing material world. Instead of defining capitalism or communism with 5 clean bullet points and seeking the manifestation of this
Also, by the way, just a quick, I actually just found like an explanation like dialectical materialism, but you're explaining it to a preschooler. Okay. So
I'm curious. Yeah, okay. How's this go?
Okay,
yeah.
So, all right, imagine you have a big box of building blocks. Each block can be different. Some are big, some are small, and they all can be put together in various ways to build different things like houses, towers, or bridges. Now, think about the world around us as if it were made up of these building blocks, but instead of blocks, we have all sorts of things like trees, animals, and people. Dialectical materialism is a way of understanding how all these things in the world, just like your blocks, can change and interact with each other. Sometimes when you're building with blocks, you might try to put a piece in a spot, but it doesn't fit well, so you have to find another piece or change your design. In the world, things also don't always fit perfectly the first time. People have ideas, and sometimes these ideas don't work out, so they try new ones, and that's how things change and get better.
Oh,
so
look.
dialectical materialism is a bit like playing with blocks. It's about understanding how everything around us can change, fit together, and how sometimes making something new and better might mean changing how we think or do things.
And do you know how you, and how do you actually, so that's actually pretty good. That explained it in a more simplistic way. It said the same thing as what I said, but it was far easier, I think, to understand. So how exactly, if we have a world full of blocks that are inherently different, how then do we circle the square, so to speak, to make sure that all of the blocks fit together? Well, we make them all equal squares, or equal cubes. They must all be equal. So, and if for some reason one cube ends up being a little bit larger than the other, well, then you have to just re-engage in cutting all the cubes down again and engaging in the dialectic all over. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the Marxist or the dialectic materialism in terms of economics. But you can apply the thing about the dialectic as it comes out of Hegel is it applies to anything. You can apply it to anything. You can apply to any aspect. I mean, that's why, all of the like LGBT stuff that happens in the West, that's all, and they'll even call it this sometimes, it's like gay dialectics or whatever. It's the same thing. You have to restructure society all under this paradigm so that all things are equal, which of course is absurdist. But that's an interesting, that's a cute, cute way of explaining it, but I think it is accurate.
So it is pretty accurate, but just a little oversimplified.
Well, I mean, you're trying to explain it to like a 5-year-old, so yes, it's oversimplified, but I think it's correct. It's an accurate representation of dialectics. Yeah. Oh no, my commie blocks. Yeah. All right, let's finish this up, shall we?
Concept in the material world. We observe the material conditions and processes that surround us, and out of sheer convenience, loosely define them for further simplification, knowing very well that in 10 years' time, our definition will likely need rigorous updating. This necessitates above all else the strict observation of the historical context, the material conditions of the era in question, when investigating a certain epoch. One must patiently consider the events that preceded and followed the given point in time, always seeking to understand the multi-dimensional causality of preceding, parallel, and following events.
Multi-dimensional causality? What?
These are really strong words, my guy.
Multi-dimensional causality. Does he have any idea what the fuck that phrase means? I don't think he has any... He just said that shit.
I'm gonna be honest here. I have a strong feeling that this guy, and honestly, this isn't even a bad idea, but he basically just writes all of that in like a simple way, in his own way, and he puts that all into ChatGPT and says it.
Make it sound smart.
Rewrite it intellectually.
Multi-dimensional that's a ChatGPT line. That clearly is. Multi-dimensional causality. When talking about the dialectical method. That makes no sense. It doesn't follow. We're talking about string theory all of a sudden. What the fuck? Dude.
Again,
no.
I'm pretty convinced he does that with ChatGPT. I mean, honestly, like I myself, I actually do use ChatGPT like that. Like I want to make my paragraphs sound a little bit better, so I write them normally, then I just insert them in the ChatGPT, and and they turn out a little more better, because if I write, but I'm just doing that to make my paragraphs sound more elegant and better. But he's using that intentionally to mislead people and intentionally make it overcomplicated to make people think he knows what he is talking about. That's the issue.
Yeah, let me tell you something, Balkan Odyssey, if you're watching this for some reason. Listen, if you actually understand the things that you're talking about, you don't need to say things like multi-dimensional causality out of nowhere. People can understand if you know what you're talking about. It's why people think that my videos are written by ChatGPT. But I write everything. I mean, and in fact, I think that one thing that probably does make my stuff stand out a little bit, if you are familiar with my work extensively, probably at some point, you can get that I have certain idiosyncrasies in the way that I type and the way that I write things. And by the way, a big thing in academic research is that there's this big focus, for good reason, on blind peer review, that we're not supposed to know whose work we're reviewing when we're looking at journal publication. But I can tell you, and any academic can tell you, that if you've read someone's work before, if you're in a small field like mine, game scholarship, media psychology, and you're working for a certain publication, now I never have, but I can tell you for a fact that if I hadn't read someone's name on the top of a paper and I started to read through it, I can detect idiosyncrasies in the way that they type and the way that they talk. And it's only because you're so used to this one area and how the sources they cite and the way that they type things. Outside of that, though, what a weird thing to say. That's so clearly a ChatGPT line. I can't believe you would leave that in there. And again, you're talking about string theory, but we're bringing in physics into this. It's because he doesn't understand what it means. He doesn't understand I don't think he understood that whole spiel about the dialectic method. Frog Jupiter for 5 says here, if you can't explain something simply, do you really understand it? And I don't think so. Now, maybe the way I tried to explain dialectic materialism and the dialectic process didn't make sense either. But I think I explained it at least more succinctly using common words rather than jargon and nonsense than he even attempted to, because I don't think he understands it. I doubt many commies understand dialectic materialism, to be honest. It's just again another word they just use to throw out to sound intelligent, which is incredibly stupid, honestly.
Because the entire point of like making these videos is to actually educate people and make them understand, like, your job is to, you know, break this down and actually, you know, get people to know what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
This is the direct opposite. His goal isn't to actually convince people of his position and why this is right, because he knows that if he explained it simply and simple for people to digest, they would realize how fucking bullshit it is, because he knows that people will call on his bullshit. So the only way for him to actually do this is to appear smart by literally making ChatGPT reword it intellectually, so the average Joe literally cannot comprehend it, and then his zombie followers will then applaud him for, you know, being so intellectual, like he wrote something smart, that must mean he is actually smart. Like, your job isn't to educate people. Your job isn't to educate people. This is blatant propaganda.
Yes, it is. Simply Green says multidimensional equals multifactorial. Maybe that's what he means, but when you say multi-dimensional causality, so causality has multiple meanings. When we talk about, like, if I'm looking at, is this factor causal in a piece of social science research? Like, how much does this variable affect another variable using a regression analysis, for example? That's causal. But when you use causality in the format next to the word multidimensional, causality also has a temporal meaning in terms of astrophysics and physics in general. So when you put the word causality next to multidimensional, it inherently sounds like you're talking about string theory, which is like, what? Like, crazy in this context. Now, maybe that's what he meant was multi-factor, but it just came out of nowhere, and it kind of gave me a jump scare as to how stupid that was. But yeah, I think that this reads as someone who is very much a midwit trying to sound intelligent, and to other midwits, I'm sure this sounds very impressive. But as you said, he's not actually trying to convince anyone of anything. He's trying to give the people who already believe in the same things that he believes a little thing that they can go and share about and feel intelligent and feel good about themselves and get a little ego boost and go, man, I didn't understand that at all, but I feel really smart after watching it. That's it. That's all it is. However, doesn't expect people like us to watch it.
It works really well.
It does, yeah.
Okay, let's finish this.
Yeah.
What does this entire pile of words and concepts mean?
Oh my god,
wait,
perfect
wasn't
timing.
this supposed to be the summary?
Yeah, what does this pile of words mean?
He's gotta be self-aware.
It has to.
We're gonna have a summary of the summary. Amazing.
Right, that was supposed to be the summary. That was kind of a perfect pause though, where I paused it and then we got back into it of where does this bunch of gobbledygook, what does this gobbledygook actually mean? I don't know, you were just supposed to explain it. I did for you, homie.
Well, it means that we ought to observe history as a series of ever-evolving socioeconomic systems.
Wait, you said history wasn't linear though.
With the Eurocentric model, suggesting primitive communism, slave society, feudalism, and capitalism as the general stages
primitive
of
communism.
Opposed to looking at history as a random...
Yeah, what is primitive communism? Oh, is that when it doesn't work?
The Stone Age. The Stone Age was communist.
Anarcho-communist, anarcho-syndicalist stuff, yeah. Right?
Yeah, the Olga Bolga Miev big stick is communism.
Right.
A series of personal political squabbles between elites and politicians, we herewith conclude that social classes are the ones fighting for hegemony and emancipation, with class struggle as the main vessel of social and economic change. Thus, forces of progress and those of reaction clash through their antagonistic interests and facilitate constant development. The core virtue of this entire philosophy...
Constant development, that's the progressive march through history. You can't abandon that part now, can you? You still keep it in your belief system. Can't abandon it. Progressive march through history never stops. Now, does it? Hey, that's also the dialectic. Never stops. God damn it. I love when you can just pull people's shit apart so easily.
Is that it allows us to uncover
God
the systemic causes of the issues that have plagued our societies throughout history, to unravel the secrets of our socioeconomic system with an X-ray that gives us insight into the background processes that usually go completely unnoticed through the traditional idealist lens. Just like a doctor is compelled to...
To be honest, it feels like you went like to Reddit. It looked like some people commenting, and I was repeating every comment he liked just to make himself look better.
Probably. Yeah, probably. So, hang on, I want to go back here though for a second, because I got a little bit too... I got irritated here. I just want to hear what he said here for a second, and then before we moved into this, from this point to the next point.
Into the background processes that usually go completely unnoticed through the traditional idealist lens.
No, that's not what... Systemic analysis is... Whatever, okay, fine.
Just like a doctor is compelled to look at the root cause, the underlying disease of any symptom his patient may have, so are we compelled to examine the foundational sources of the problems with our social organism. And this can be done only with dialectical materialism.
Okay. Only. That's the only lens through which it can be done. Is through Marxism. Only by, again, the deconstruction of everything into its basic parts, turning everyone into an equal cube, or cutting everything down until everyone is exactly the same, equal, indistinguishable bit of gray mush. Yes, that's dialectical materialism. There you go. I mean, I love when they say this shit. They just, again, they put a bunch of flowery words around it to not say what they really mean, which is that, and what they really mean is that all of you, the plebs, you're all going to be a bunch of gray mush that's unidentifiable. But because we, the thought leaders, the party leaders, no, we will have, we will help you. So we won't be made part of the gray mush. Have you ever watched, this is a poll, sorry. Have you ever watched Little Mermaid? That movie? The original one. The animated movie?
I know this is very blasphemous what I'm about to say, but I actually haven't watched it.
It's okay. There's a part where, like, Ursula turns all of the people into these little just, like, seaweed-looking monstrosities. That's what they want everyone else to be, just a little seaweed monstrosity around them. But
they want everyone to be completely equal, even if it's equal in poverty.
Yes, exactly. Except them, because they're the thought leaders. They are the party members. And they're not... I love when they don't even hide it like this guy does. It's crazy. I love it.
So, there we go. We've come to a conclusive ending to our critique of contemporary historical scholarship with a viable alternative in mind.
What's the viable alternative? Oh, man. The viable alternative is to destroy all of human society. There you go. That's viable. I think we got it. Well, guys, we have done it, I believe. Is there anything more to this, you think?
No, I think... Okay,
let's see.
Let's let him cook for the last minute.
He's got a minute left, yeah, let's see.
It's important to keep in mind that these two opposing modes of thought, and by extension methods of investigating history, are diametrically opposed and cannot be reconciled. The historical evolution from idealism to dialectics as the highest mode of human thought has been well documented and can be traced through the works of dozens of philosophers from the 18th century up to today. In the spirit of its tenets, it is an ever-evolving social science. So
no, it's not science. It's not science, dude. No.
You above all else to take a look at this development yourself and do your fair share of reading. Moreover, it's also worth mentioning that there will inevitably be those who unconditionally oppose even the consideration of an alternative mode of thought, who, out of their self-serving...
But we don't automatically deny alternative modes of thought or politic. That's the thing. So we don't even fall into a stupid little thing.
Shit.
Sorry, say again?
It's just that your alternative is shit.
Yes, exactly. Right. I mean, he would think that, but no, we listened to it. This is not... What you said was stupid, and you couldn't even explain your own ideas.
Interests, or perhaps irrational fear, cynically dismiss and slander about subjects
cynically.
that they, more often than not, don't even understand the basics.
Oh, really?
This kind of derisive and sneering attitude is to
Yeah, I explained the dialectic better than you did in like 2 minutes, dude.
be expected, and should be ignored for the most part, as long as it stays unconstructive.
Oh, just
or
ignore it.
cynical.
Oh no, see, if someone debunks me, just ignore it. What a loser. Good God. Oh, hang on.
Well, this was certainly a trip.
Yeah, that was a trip. That was fascinating. In a horrifying way. Anywho, that is what we had for the evening. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say before we head out?
Nope. I just say my brain is fried, brain cells were genocided, and I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah, that's true. I've got 2 more... Wolfgang, do you have anything you want to say before I get these last 2 super chats?
No, I have already fried my own brain cells watching this nonsense.
Yeah, I think we all kind of got a little brain fried from it. And then Frog Jupiter, also for 5, which was the only one I didn't get, was pragmatism is incomplete. What's practical depends on your goals. If my goal was to harm the nation, it would be practical to be an environmentalist. Sure. Yeah, depends on your goals. Exactly. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, Spoon could not be here tonight because he's doing his own stuff. I am working on my video, but it's going to be a while before that comes out. However, I will be streaming throughout the entire month of April, even though I will be away. But, yep, thank you guys so much for doing this with me, and yeah, we gotta find another time to do it again. Always fun to laugh and or kill my brain cells with some lefty cringe. So, all right. Thanks for joining me. You can find the links to everybody's, to Lavender and to Wolfgang's channels in the description. And see you again next time for Tankie Tier Squad. Bye-bye.